and you are watching another edition of Blue It's Blitz. I actually didn't even mean to go live right there at that very second, but nonetheless, here we are with one Mr. Michael Nania. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's been a pretty quiet week, so not a lot to really discuss. I don't know why we're doing this today, but I mean, here we are.
Jan, what time does this thing start? It starts exactly right now. Sorry for being 7 minutes late. Obviously, Nani is being a little bit sarcastic there. Plenty of going on with Jets hiring some guys in the front office, hiring some guys for position groups as well. Game management type stuff. Actually, no, it wasn't game management. We hired Rick Spielman as the kind of like a VP of football operations, and we also hired a game management guy who was on the Giants for quite a long time as well. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Q. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about quarterback options. We have plenty to discuss. I've been arguing with people on Twitter for about 2 days. I think at a certain point in the podcast, I'm just going to take you on my Twitter and just see how stupid some of the responses can be to questions. Like the one question I legitimately asked, okay, so, and I'll pull up the actual tweet later, Nania. And I didn't want to get into this off the start because I feels like you need to build up a little bit to the main topic. But the only thing I asked was, okay, if you think the Jets are a 2 or 3 win team without Rodgers, and you think they're a 9 and 10 win team with Rodgers, that makes you crazy in my book. Not talking about preferring him, anything like that. And people are like, "Oh, you're giving Aaron Glenn excuses." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I said one thing. Like, you're bringing in completely different topics. Like, I'm gonna take you through my Twitter in an hour or two. People in the chat, and just see how bad Twitter can be. But nonetheless, let's say hello to some people in the chat. We'll get Rodgers stuff right off the bat, and we'll go off of that. Hello to Danger Zone, Dano, Dagoda, who says he misses AR already. RJ says, since I'm finally catching a stream when it's live, just want to say thanks, Joe, for always answering my questions. Oh, RJ, what's your Twitter handle? I probably recognize you if I answer you all the time. Then howdy from Todd. What is up, Todd? Rob D, what's up? Jan says, did you ever find out if site members automatically become YouTube members or if it's separate? I honestly haven't, to be completely transparent, Jan. I don't know if we've even discussed this, you Sable and I, in terms of like, hey, if you buy a sub to the website, you automatically get YouTube. But we'll talk about that soon, Jan, and then I'll let you know next stream. Honestly, I don't think it's been something that we've really figured out yet. R&R, what is up? Sane content. I've seen some wild stuff. People who are saying, hey, I'll let whatever Aaron Glenn and Moogie decide, Nania, I'll be fine with that. As long as they make the decision, I'm fine with it. They decide to get rid of Rodgers, freaking out. I'm out on them. This, fire them. They'll be gone in 2 years. It's just, it's crazy to me. But nonetheless, Jan, with a super chat right off the jump. Let's go, Jan. I appreciate you for being in here. Obviously, always dropping some super chats. I missed you at the games later in the year, Jan. You popping by, having a beer or two, and then going to your other tailgate. I see Jan pretty frequently at the games, and actually you've met Jan too, right, Nani? I think you've been at a game when Jan walks. Yeah, all 6'4" of him, 6'5" of him. We do need a right tackle. I was just throwing out there. Rob D says, I'm sure more pro bring back Rodgers than both of you, but I legit see both sides and see why moving on makes sense. Do you want to get into like the pro Rodgers side? Like, okay, so we are both, and obviously people know this from last week, and we got people said some stuff in the chat or in the comments after. I don't have time to answer it all. Like, people are kind of like they'll put stuff in the YouTube comments and it like asking questions or completely taking our opinion out of context, and it's like, oh, well, you guys think this and that. I'm like, no, dude, there's a 2-hour podcast and we talk about the entire thing, and you're just completely false. Like, it's out there. But nonetheless, we're both non-Aaron Rodgers guys, at least for 2025. But taking the pro Rodgers side, could you see why people would want him back, or like, do you not understand it at all? Like, are you so steadfast or not, like, so far on the side of get rid of Rodgers?
I mean, I would say that I'm pretty strongly on that side, but I think there are reasonable arguments that could have been made for it. The thing that I just always find myself realizing when I dive into this is that most of the people who are on that side, and I'm not saying it's, everybody, definitely not, but a lot of them just don't have the best arguments to bring to the table. Like, it doesn't matter where he ranks in Jets history in passing touchdowns last
Yeah.
year. It doesn't matter that he's popular among his teammates and things like that. It just feels like a lot of the arguments are very, aren't that strong, and it's hard to go against them when there isn't really much to argue against because they're kind of pointless things to bring up. But I think there are arguments for it. And I think the main thing that you could say is that he can be argued as better or at least equal to any of the other realistic options that they have
Mhm.
this year. And so if Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn come in here, and especially, your new OC and Tanner Engstrand, if they come in here and they see him as a scheme fit, a culture fit, they're on board with it. They think he's the guy in their view because they can evaluate that better than we can, knowing what their vision and philosophy is in terms of scheme, culture, all that. Then, by all means, there were ways, assuming this happens, there were ways to make it work. With a pay cut, with the
Mhm.
contract and all that. And you could be your stopgap for 1 year, and you could work on whatever you have working in the background for your quarterback for the future. You could punt that to next year, whatever, and you could compete 1 more year with him if that's what these guys were on board with, your new regime. But now that we're in this position and the decision's been made, it seems pretty clear that this is not the opinion that the new regime had. So at this point, I think you just have to, whether you trust Muji and Glenn or not, I think it's the decision that they made. And that based on
Mhm.
everything that, we just brought up, scheme, culture, and all that, it just seems like that they didn't believe he was their best option going forward.
Yeah, and I think just in general too, like on Twitter and wherever else it is, I see it mostly on Twitter because I've been more active there the last like day or two. Like the telling people how to root thing has to definitely stop, and the like the personal attacks, like, oh, if you don't want to keep Rodgers, you don't know football. It's like, okay, like you could break down film with me any day of the week. Like, I don't want him, and are you going to be able to come on the show? Probably not. So it's like the personal attacks on people who don't agree with you is stupid. And I feel like it's coming from the pro Rodgers side much more so than the anti Rodgers side. Like that, everybody who's anti Rodgers is a complete asshole and idiot. And I would say the thing I get the most on Twitter, or the thing I got the most the last 2 days on Twitter was, and again, this being their main argument. And again, if you want to root for this team to get the most possible wins in 2025, and that's how you root for the Jets, then fine. I can't tell you necessarily how to root, but the thing I keep hearing is, well, tell me a better option in 2025. And Nani, what would be your response to that? Because I see that that's been asked me 1,000 times on Twitter. I don't know how many tweets I put out in the last couple of days, but plenty. And the main thing I get is, tell me the better starter in 2025, and that's people's arguments.
Yeah, I think there's two counterpoints to that I would have. And the first one is that I don't believe that that is the main question that matters in this equation because we all know the Jets are not winning the Super Bowl this year. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
Jets know that they're not winning the Super Bowl this year. So the short-term win total for 2025, or even just, regardless of the wins, what you're getting from the quarterback position is not
Mm-hmm.
what's most important here. So even if he were clearly the best, it's not what matters. I think it's more about the long-term view and setting the foundation for this organization, whatever works
Yeah.
best in that way. So that is, I think, is the first thing. But in terms of him being the best for this year, I don't think it's as definitive as a lot of, the pro Rodgers side, I think, claims that it is. The one thing I don't understand is where this narrative came from that he had some great season and it's an automatic 10-win year if he comes back. Like, so many people are talking about it like, oh, the Jets just punted on a 10-win, 9-win season. Or like,
Mm-hmm.
I saw some of your replies. It's like, oh, well, I would have rather just won 9, 10 games. Why is that such a guarantee? Like, we thought it was a guarantee when they were coming off
Yeah.
7 wins with Zach Wilson and you
But
bring him
but
in.
then at the same time, again, Nani, and to interrupt you, they'll say, "Oh, well, 9-10 wins with Rodgers, but 2 or 3 wins without him." If you think Rodgers is like a plus or minus
Exactly,
seven,
right.
8 win quarterback at this point in his career, you're absolutely mistaken. And with that, one, he's gonna be 42. He has injuries. You broke down the article, which I want you to elaborate on later. But basically, Tanner Engstrom, at least with the Lions, their offense ran a lot of 12 personnel,
Right.
something he's not great with. A lot of under center, which he's not great with. A lot of in-breaking routes, which he's not great with. Lacking of vertical shots, which he likes to take. So like he doesn't fit the offense, and he's 42 years old with injuries. You can't just like a 6 or 7 win plus or minus is ridiculous with Rodgers. Just to kind of to further your point.
Yeah, exactly. So I think even if you do think he's better, it's not to the extent that it would add 7, 8 wins, whatever some of these people are putting out there. It's like a win or two better, possibly, but even that seems optimistic when you consider how well he actually played this year. Because I think a lot of people go off the passing touchdowns or where it ranks in Jets history and all that, but he threw the second most passes in the league this year. So obviously that's going to inflate some of the box score numbers. They threw at a higher rate near the goal line than any other team in the league. So that inflates the passing touchdowns as well. And if you look at any efficiency based stat, even yards per attempt, which is pretty basic, but if you go into the other stuff like EPA or his adjusted completion percentage, any of the more advanced metrics, he's just 20s, mid 20s, sometimes gets into the lower teens, but it's pretty unanimous that he was below average last year. And then there's, the narrative that he got better towards the end of the year. Well, the second to last game of the year, he put them down 40-0 against the Bills. He had the lowest QBR by any quarterback since Davis Mills in 2021, and he got benched. So that was part of that end of the year. He didn't look too much better in that game, but he had the great finale against the Dolphins, and I guess that's all a lot of people remember. So I don't think he got better towards the end of the season, and even if he did, it sort of is admitting that injuries hampered half of his season, which only increases the chances that he gets injured again next year, which at his age, and it's now 3 seasons in a row that have been majority impacted by injuries, it's pretty likely he's going to get injured again. And that's part of Tyrod too. Like that's something that absolutely needs to be considered with him. That's why, he's not like your guy with no insurance plan. But it applies to Rodgers as well. So yeah, I guess those are some of the things that would go against the idea that, Rodgers is somehow like a shoe-in 9-10 win quarterback.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is like, oh well, he's another year off of the Achilles injury. Like, yeah, like that's true, but at the same time, it's another year where he's getting into his older age. Like if he was 33, it's another year off the Achilles injury. It's like, yeah, fine, like great, hopefully he's healthy, but it's like he's 42, so another year isn't necessarily a good thing. Like he had so many little like knick-knacky injuries that are just going to increase. Father Time undefeated. We all know that. So and kind of like this comment says, right? I think it was from Rob D. Like, and he's saying like he understands both sides and he would have given him 1 or 2 more wins max, which is fine. Like we all want to win. Like at the end of the day, we can get this out of the way. Trust me, I want to win. I was actually telling Michael before the show that I'm in a public speaking class and I had to make a presentation for 30 minutes. And I made the presentation about how miserable my life is as a Jets fan. And I'm already done. So trust me, I'm like, I've been miserable for 16 years that I've been like a really, really diehard fan. And obviously Michael wants to see the team win as well. Not only for our fandom, but also affects our pockets a little bit as well, like running the website and stuff. So for multiple reasons, you want to see them win. So when people are like, oh, you just want to, see them lose. It's like, I don't, what are you talking about? Like that's just completely, it's not factual. And it's a thing where for me, basically my argument is for 1 or 2 more wins this year, which okay, if he gives you that, fine, we can agree to that maybe he would, but it's not worth everything that he brings. And people kind of got the comments screwed up last week. It's like, I don't think when I say Rodgers is polarizing is polarizing. That's not me saying he's a bad player. You could be polarizing and be a great teammate. I'm just saying polarizing in general for a rookie coach, for a rookie OC to walk into. Is that rookie OC going to have enough balls to tell Rodgers, no, I don't want to do that, or whatever it may be? Again, it's a thing where you save money, right? I think so. They owe him $49 million, dead, basically, let's just say 49. I know all the June 1st crap, whatever. It's 49 this year. If they keep him for this year, it would be 61 for 2026. So 49 dead. If we were to cut him this year, if we sign him, if we keep him this year, the dead cap next year would be $61 million, right? So it's a $12 million difference. And then I think he could take like an $11 million pay cut, right? Or something like that. I could be wrong with those numbers, but I think it's about $11 million. So even if he takes an $11 million pay cut, fine. I think that's all he could wash out of the contracts is $11 million. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong with that. But you don't only consider Rodgers though, because there's about $30 million for Devontae Adams. So then you have Devontae Adams for $30 million, and okay, he takes a pay cut. What is he going to be happy with? Even if he goes down to $15 million, okay, $15 million, and then what about Lazard? Lazard's still on the team. Is he going to want Lazard around? So it's just like it's kind of like a snowball effect with some of the guys he has around. Again, he's polarizing. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I got this stuff on Twitter like, oh, guys, it must be a left wing snowflake. It's like, no, absolutely not. Like that's not why I don't like Rodgers. I like Rodgers overall, but it's just a thing where, again, I don't think it's worth it for all this extra money and how polarizing he is for an extra win or two. And then people's other argument is, oh well. What message does this send to the players on the team? And I get, and we'll talk about Quinn and Williams, but me personally, and I'm not in their shoes, I will put myself in their shoes. We're going to go into fairy tale land and act like I'm an NFL player. If I'm an NFL player on the Jets, let's say I'm Quinn Williams, who's been there for 7-8 years, and I look at this team and I realize, hey, we're not a Super Bowl team. Like we just watched the Eagles beat the shit out of the Chiefs, the trenches, the defense, all of that stuff. The Jets are not there. They're not a playoff team. Maybe they get to the wild card and get knocked out in the first round with Rodgers. If everything works absolutely right, which again, I'm not willing to take the chance and the money for that. But nonetheless, if I'm Quinn Williams, do I see Rodgers in 2025 maybe winning us 9 games? Like, oh, I'm so happy to stay here. I'll sign another contract extension. Like this is, or let's say Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, like, oh well, we'll have a 9-win season with Rodgers, and then I'm okay with a rebuild in 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029 because we had one winning season in 2025. Like they're either here for the rebuild or they aren't here for the rebuild. I don't think that one decent season for these guys is going to hold them over for 3, 4, 5 years of shit if we're assuming it's going to be that bad. And I'd argue it's not because the Jets are more of a retool than a rebuild. They have some pieces, but it's not like, hey, get Garrett Wilson 8-9 wins this year and he'll be happy for the next 5. Like in what world do they want to win just that many games? So I think if Aaron Glenn and Moogie come in here and they prove to them their kind of their direction, and Garrett Wilson and all these guys really like the leadership of the coaching staff and of Aaron Glenn, that's when they stick around. I don't think a 9-win season from Rodgers and oh shit, we have to find a quarterback anyway in 2026 is going to hold them over. I don't know if I formulated that the correct way, but does one winning season hold these guys over? Like we have to rebuild either now at this very moment or in 2026. Everybody's like, oh, they don't have an answer at quarterback then. It's like Rodgers isn't the answer to quarterback. Like
right.
That's another thing. It's like, oh, well, they have no answer. Rodgers is not an answer either. So you could say that like, oh, well, give me a better option for 2025. Again, I don't think he's a solution. Like he's not a solution. So what do you think about the whole player thing? Like, oh, well, what message does that send to the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, it's going to come down to, in terms of a lot of these star homegrown players that they have and whether they want to stay, it comes down to whether they gain that trust in Muji and Glenn. And this is obviously a big statement with their first huge move coming in, but it's something that they'll have to earn along the way because Rodgers being here, even if like everyone respects him for what he's done in the league and he was in the building last year and by all accounts, mostly good teammate, aside from, a few things that happened, a guy who seems like he's respected, but it doesn't guarantee that they're going to win anything. They brought him in and they won 5 games. So it doesn't guarantee that they were going to have a positive season. And even if they did, like you said, it would only be a decent-ish season. Nothing like, this is a championship caliber organization now, and that changes everything. So yeah, I think making this move firmly establishes that Glenn and Muji want to be in charge and put their own stamp on the future of this team. And I think for me, the fact that they did this is, I think, a very positive sign if you're a Jets fan looking at them going forward, because it shows a confidence in their own vision and an unwillingness to simply take what they were given and just ride with the narratives of this franchise that have riddled them for the past few years as more of like a circus type franchise. It shows that they're not going to just come in here and ride with that. They're clearing out the dead weight and they want to build their own thing from scratch. And I think it's an admirable thing for them to come in here and do that. And I think the fact that you see that reaction from Quinn Williams is only further, affirms why it's a positive thing, because the Jets players have this sort of collective entitlement, I feel like, where their voices should matter in the roster decisions,
Yeah.
or it's just okay for them to go complain about everything on social media the minute that it happens. And I think this is a positive in that way, because it's showing that these things aren't going to be accepted anymore. The football decision makers are going to make decisions. We're not signing players because of cheeseheads, because you went to college with them, because you have a good relationship with them, or anything like that. It's just about football decisions.
Yeah.
And there are football reasons. The scheme thing is another big part of this, which we'll get into. There are very legitimate football reasons beyond Pat McAfee show, anything off field, cap, any of that. There are legitimate football reasons why it also just isn't a good fit for Rodgers to continue playing with them. And if that's why they want to make this decision, they have to go ahead and make it, and not succumb to,
Yeah.
the players, the ownership, the narratives around the team, what's popular, what sells jerseys. They have to make football decisions. And after what the Jets kind of became the last couple of years, with Rodgers influencing hires, influencing roster moves, I think it's a positive to see two rookies in in their respective positions come in here and make that sort of statement that they want to be in charge and do this their way.
Yeah, it could be a thing, and again, like the polarizing thing, it could just be that he demands attention. Like, it could be something where, hey, let's say Angstrom calls a dagger concept, and Rodgers doesn't agree with it, and then Rodgers misses, he gets hit on that play, or, it's an incomplete pass, and he's on the sideline, like throwing his hands up or callow over his head, or whatever. Then it's like the players will like look at him and be like, hey, like, okay, does this freaking Angstrom guy suck? Like, Rodgers, the MVP, is mad about it. Like, it's a lot. Again, I'm not saying he's
Yeah,
he's
and I
bad.
think, yeah, I agree. Like, that is the key point here, because I don't think what you or I are saying, and other people who are anti-Rodgers might be different, but at least for you and me, I think it's not a case of like we don't like Aaron Rodgers, agree with some of the things he says, or anything like that. I think we could all see, and Jets players have said it, that he's pretty well respected and a good teammate. It's
But that
not
could also
that.
be a problem at the same time.
Right, because it does, Robbie's talked about this a bit, how sometimes it's not great when the players are, so positive about things. Sometimes you want to have that sense of accountability and doubt. But yeah, I think it's not about like disliking Rodgers. It's more that even if he's the best teammate ever, just being who he is, he has a sense of just power by through his presence is just
Yeah.
more it's just stronger than anyone else in the building as long as he's
Hmm.
there. And especially you have a first year coordinator who's almost the same age as him. The scenario you laid out is exactly why I think it's important, because regardless
Hmm.
of how good of a leader or teammate he is, it's almost as if his voice and his opinion carries more weight than the coaching staff. And I don't think that's a positive place to be in as you're trying
Hmm.
to establish a new culture. And he could buy in as much as he wants, and do all these things to make it, seem like he's committed. And, maybe he would have legitimately done that. But even if he did, it just doesn't change that to a guy like Garrett Wilson, to a rookie coming onto the team, whoever it might be, maybe a guy, and even Quinn Williams on the defensive side of the ball. Like, Aaron Rodgers' opinion is just going to be louder than Tanner Engstrand's opinion.
Yeah.
And it's just something you can't really change. So I think that is a big part of why they want to do it. And the production isn't there to warrant that at this
To
point. We
justify it.
knew it. We knew this would be the case when they brought him in,
Hmm.
but it was okay because he was Aaron Rodgers and he was supposed to be the missing piece to, a team that at the time seemed like it was a quarterback away. But at this point, bridge year, not competing for a Super Bowl, I do think that, that kind of weight that he carries, that presence that he has, isn't worth it for, just stopgap quarterback production that you could get
Yeah.
very similarly, maybe slightly less from a guy like Tyrod Taylor, Kirk Cousins, whoever it may be, without that other effect of, his presence over the team. So it does seem like that is or was a big factor in this.
Yeah, and even if like Aaron Glenn comes in and establishes himself, and he has more of like he carries more water than Aaron Rodgers does in terms of like his opinion mattering to the other players. There's no way Engstrom's going to. And then if it's a thing where like, hey, if the season is going a little bit wrong, or even if we're let's say close to the playoffs, and Rodgers thinks like, yeah, you know what, I'll be a good soldier, I'll go along with Engstrom, but whether it be going so good that either he like again we're either about to make the playoffs or it's going so bad where Rodgers doesn't like agree with the calls, is Rodgers going to start to change the plays there? Like if the offense starts really sucking, hey, I'm not going out this way. Check to the pass, check to the pass, check to the pass, like it did this year, and we threw the ball 10,000 times for 5 yards, an attempt. So it's just again, it's not a polarizing thing, meaning bad. Polarizing means polarizing. But with the players too, like you mentioned it, and again, Q is the perfect example of it. Like they've been, and I love Q. Like it's crazy that people are like, oh, trade Q now. Like let's not do that. Let's not get rid of our good players.
Yeah.
Like Q should probably stick around. But the fact that he comes out and puts a thumbs down and then is like, hey, I guess I'm in for another rebuild. Again, Q, it's like, hey, and I said this, I responded to him. I got a lot of responses from I would assume I was one of the top responses. I got 1,000 freaking not messages, but tweets and shit. But said it to Q. It's like it, and he didn't. And obviously, he didn't read it. But it's like, one, if you guys won in 2024, we wouldn't have to worry about this. And two, like, what does that do for you? What is going out on Twitter and openly disagreeing with your front office do for you? It doesn't do anything. And then people are like, oh, well, you could voice your opinion, Joe, on Twitter. Why can't he? It's because he's employed by the team. It's very, very different for me to do it with 10,000 followers. Even Nani, it would make more impact. He's like 40,000. With me with a measly 10,000 followers, like nobody's going to listen to me, and I'm not employed by the team. But when you're the best player on the team, or at least a top 2-3 player on the team, argue Garrett Wilson, Sauce, whatever, it's not a good look for you to come out there and actively disagree with your front office. Now you can disagree with them, but it's not productive to put it out on social media. So talk about it with your teammates, talk about it with your friends, talk about it with whoever, like vent in that way. But I didn't like you going out on Twitter, and it kind of exemplifies the fact that like the locker room has been soft. Like Rodgers wanted to be friends with, or not Rodgers, Salah wanted to be friends with all these guys, and they're going out on Twitter and tweeting and deleting their accounts all the time. Q, Sauce, Brees, the one game, what game was it? He got like 3 carries or 3 something. He put out like footballs for the game, or I think this was rookie year, maybe his second year, but he got like 4 or 5 carries.
I think it was second year.
He put out like 5 football emojis or something like that. Like it's just way too much of these guys walking around and thinking their shit doesn't stink and they're not part of the problem with losing all that stuff. And Aaron Glenn has to come in here and establish a culture. And I don't know what happened to Q's Twitter. I don't know if he called Q where they were in contact, like, hey, dude, what the fuck? And Q deleted it. Or if Q just like he thought about it again and then just decided to delete it. But the mindset of this team has been just so soft for a couple of years that I'm excited for these guys to kind of walk on eggshells a little bit around Aaron Glenn. And he still is a player's coach, but he kind of demands respect first. And I think guys just walked over Salah, and it's pretty evident on social media that they didn't really respect their coaches and their coaching staff. So Q exemplified that, and that was obviously a bad look for him. But yeah, the culture definitely needs a shift.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance to it. Aaron Glenn seems like a player's coach in a lot of ways. We saw the one interview where he talked about being able to have conversations with players and being upfront with them, and how he's heard from players that they don't get that from coaches a lot in the way that he was doing for them in Detroit. He's a player's coach, but also he has a balance to where there's still respect demanded. And between this move and what we've seen from him as the Lions defensive coordinator, I really feel confident that he's going to kind of strike that balance in a better way than Salah could. And we'll see if that equates to wins or not. There's still a lot more to it than that. But it does seem like he is the type of guy who could establish a sense of accountability while also being a player's coach, because you do have to have that today, since it is the reality that players do have more power than they ever have before. And that's only going to increase as they make more and more money. They become more and more influential. It just is what it is. So you have to have that aspect of it. You can't, be a total drill sergeant, but there are aspects of that I think could be beneficial for winning. And the thing with the social media stuff is, even if one tweet in itself doesn't really do anything necessarily, I think it's just an indicator of the mentality of the team.
Mhm.
Like, the fact that you feel like it's okay to do that is kind of an indicator that there isn't a sense of kind of accountability is one part of it, but almost like togetherness with the team. The fact that,
Like
you know,
discipline too.
right, and discipline, just the fact that it's okay, like, I don't like this, let me tell the whole world that I don't like what my team is doing. I don't like what my
Yeah.
coach is doing, that it's not my fault that we won this game. I'm gonna tell the whole world. They have to know that. In my mind, I feel like everyone needs to know my missed tackle against the Cardinals isn't why we lost 30-6 or whatever it was for
Mhm.
Sauce. So, like, the fact that so many players, and it's like it's not one guy, it's a lot of players. And I know people will say like every team does that. It's all players, and that's true, but it just seems to be so rampant with the Jets that it tells us on the outside that there's a culture of it being okay to not be accountable, to blame other people before looking at yourself and figuring out how to be better. So hopefully with stuff like this, I don't know if he called Q or not, or if that was his own decision. But hopefully, starting with this Rodgers move and going forward, there's more of a sense of discipline with the team and just creating a culture of, players before they go blaming other people, just asking themselves what more they could do for the team.
Yeah. There's no productivity out of it. Again, I wouldn't go
Yeah.
out there and openly disagree with my work. Like, hey, I don't know, this guy arrested that guy. Like, oh, idiot, stupid move. It's like, well, I would never do that. It's not productive. But you kind of mentioned Engstrom a little bit, and how Rodgers doesn't fit into the system. And I mentioned, my main takeaways were the 12 personnel thing. The in routes, which Rodgers hasn't been throwing over the middle of the field throughout his career at a really high rate. The lack of vertical shots in the offense as well, right, which Rodgers loves to do. Ton of motion was another point you brought up. Again, it was an excellent
Yeah.
article. Make sure to go check it out on Jets X Factor. Ton of motion in the Lions offense. And then they were more run heavy too last year, right? And Rodgers is obviously going to want to pass the ball a little bit too. But you want to get into, even though I just hammered out 5 or 6 of the main points of the article, do you bring up whatever else you want to about the fit with Rodgers and Engstrom's offense?
Oh
If,
yeah,
if
I think.
assuming that it's like the Lions offense, let me preface it with that.
Oh yeah, that's a huge disclaimer because we just don't know yet. Like, it could be a combination of that, and he's some more West Coast roots. He played under Harbaugh, or not played, coached with Harbaugh. So yeah, we don't know. Will it be a blend of those two things? Will he do his own entirely new thing? We don't know, but at least going off of what the Lions did, if he does take that over, or at least key elements of it, it really didn't seem like a good match for Rodgers. They ran a lot of motion, and Rodgers has spoken out against that before. And before last season, he did seem to speak more positively of it, but it didn't kind of translate because the Jets still were 25th in motion last year. I think the Lions were 7th or 6th, but they were up there. So yeah, a lot more motion, a lot of middle of the field stuff. And we know Rodgers throughout his career has generally avoided that. It's a big part of why he doesn't throw a lot of picks, because that is the most dangerous area to throw the ball.
Mhm.
So there's different reasons. Like, it did not make sense, and he would have to conform in major ways to fit this offense. And I personally thought it was wishful thinking to say that he would be willing to do that. And it seems, well, maybe he was, and we don't know what the exact reasons are for this separation between them. But
Yeah, can
it,
that also be a
yeah,
disclaimer too, that we don't know what happened in the meeting
right,
between him and the Jets? Like, it could have been a thing where the Jets were maybe willing, and he, Angstrom brought up the offense, or they talked about a pay cut,
yeah.
or whatever happened in the meeting. We don't know if it was 5 minutes. We don't know if it was 4 hours. So that's a big missing piece of this, is that we don't know exactly what went on behind those closed doors with Rodgers and the Jets brass.
Yeah, we don't know yet. I mean, there was the one report from, I think, Hughes, who said that it didn't have to do with money, and that it was kind of something the Jets want to do anyway. But we don't know. No one seems to know. I mean, they put these reports out there, but he met with them last week and no one reported it. You didn't know about it, but now suddenly we have all the information. I don't know. No one does except Jay Glazer apparently. So, but yeah, I think the Engstrand scheme fit wasn't really there unless Rodgers was willing to make some significant changes. And it's just the fact that the Jets offense last year was his doing. Like, that was handcrafted the way he wanted it. It was his OC that he's best friends with, two of his receivers. He had control of the line of scrimmage, and everything they did was pretty much the opposite of what the Lions were doing. Mostly outside the numbers throws, low pre-snap motion rates, a lot of 11 personnel, not a lot of 12. And obviously the Jets weren't strong at tight end, but the heavy 11 went with his preference for passing the ball quickly. He wants to get it out fast at this point of his career. He doesn't want to create too much. But when you're running more 12 personnel, it does tend to require the quarterback to hold the ball longer, because those plays are a little more longer developing. He doesn't have as much time to scan the field at the start of the play. So that also goes against kind of his recent career trends. He wants to get it out quickly at this age, but if you're doing more 12 personnel and more play action, which they also did a lot of, then you're asking the quarterback to hold the ball a little bit more, put him at more risk of getting hit, which Rodgers doesn't want to at this part of his career. So yeah, it didn't seem like the best. And that's another part of, assuming the type of production he's going to give you and how many games you'll win is, that wasn't an ideal. It wasn't going to be an ideal scheme for him, at least based on what Detroit did, again, with that disclaimer. But if that is what the Jets are planning to do, then it, is another kind of factor that might contribute to Rodgers not being as guaranteed to give the Jets a solid season as it might seem.
Yeah, and again, not saying he's a bad guy, but didn't he, LaFleur is one of the brighter offensive minds, at least in the NFL nowadays, and he openly disagreed with him in the media and stuff like that. Again, establishing a culture with a guy as polarizing as Rodgers, or even establishing an offense or identity, whatever it may be, is just going to be hard, in my opinion. Or at least makes it more complicated, which I don't think they want in year one. And it's just not worth all of the risk for. Again, if everything goes best case scenario, 9-10 wins, this team has holes. This is not the 2023 Jets. If this was the 2023 Jets, yeah, fine. If this was, hey, the bottom 5 teams get delegated to the XFL, then yeah, bring back Rodgers. He's our best chance. But 2025 doesn't really matter that much. And yes, again, both Nani and I, we want to win. I would like to win 10 games versus 8 games this year. I don't get a lot of wins, but at what point is it, or is it worth it to sacrifice the future? You're talking about, again, let's just say $30 million to carry, Rodgers, Adams, Lazard this year, something like that, $25-30 million, whatever exactly it's going to be, that we have to spend extra this year to keep those guys. Give that $30 million to Garrett Wilson. It's it just gives us more flexibility in the future to not have Rodgers. And again, I don't think it's worth it for some maybe wild card berth and an early playoff exit if it all goes right. It's just not worth it at all. And then again, the LaFleur stuff. Hey, he was speaking out about LaFleur, and he was a bright offensive mind. Engstrand's going to have some hiccups in year one, maybe even year two, and hopefully he's hopefully he's great, but he's not have his hiccups. Quinnen Williams is a good player, don't get me wrong, but even himself set the standards when he was drafted to be the next Aaron Donald, and he has not come anything close to game-changing on defense. One thing, we got to be fair to Quinnen Williams. Aaron Donald is maybe the best defensive tackle of all time, if not top 3. It's him, Reggie White, some other guys. I don't know if Reggie, he might have actually been considered a D end. I don't know, but saying he's a Hall of Fame, one of the better D tackles ever. He's not Aaron Donald. And then game changing on defense. I disagree with you there, Eagle. He started out slow this year, but what was that stat that came out the other day? He was number 2 in the league behind Chris Jones in single teamed pressures. So I would like to see him make more impact on double teams, and especially this year. I thought he was getting moved a little bit more than he has been, but Quinnen Williams is a top 3 at minimum, top 5 defensive tackle in the entire NFL. That's pretty damn good for, was he he was a 3rd pick of that year, right? Because it was Kyler, Bosa, him. So third pick, I'll sign up for Quinnen Williams every single day. Now, is it fair to say he should be Aaron Donald because he was drafted that high? I don't think that's fair to any defensive tackle. So I'm fine with Q. I would say he's a little bit disappointing this year, but still very, very, very good top 5 D tackle in the league. Moving on, trade up for. So this is, I guess we could do. Okay, so Rodgers is no longer going to be here. Do you have preferences for what you want to do at quarterback yet? Do you have any? So like to me, trading up for Cam Ward now. Where they have to trade up? Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 4? To me, the ideal situation is landing a quarterback in the draft. Now, whether that be first round or at least in the second round, like that's kind of what I prefer to do, and then develop them behind Tyrod. Tyrod plays 6, 7, 8 games maybe, and then the quarterback comes in. I could see that. I see the people who want Fields. I don't think it's something you're going to put a lot of stock into Fields. But if you had Tyrod, Fields, and a 3rd or 4th round rookie, I would be okay with that. But if they trade up for Cam Ward, I would not lose my shit. Now, I'll be transparent in saying I have watched 0 snaps. No one else is going to tell you this, but I've watched 0 snaps of Cam Ward on film or Shedeur Sanders. So I cannot say I actually like this guy or do not like this guy. But assuming that they are somewhat worth the pick, I would be completely okay with taking a quarterback or even trading up for a quarterback, this year again, without actually watching them. So I'd be okay with that. I would be okay with Tyrod, Fields. And again, people are going to say, oh, well, these aren't better answers than Rodgers. Again, tell me what Rodgers is the answer to. If it's to 2025, sure. But again, who cares about an extra win or two this year? So I'll be down for a trade up for Cam Ward to be completely transparent.
Yeah, like you, I also got to get into watching them, and I'm curious when you get to it, like whether you weigh them in that regard to where you would trade up for them. Because I saw the report. I think it was a report, not just a rumor. It may have been Rap Sheet or someone, but I forget. But there was something going around that the Titans are open to trading back from number 1. Obviously, they need a quarterback, so that obviously is not the biggest, most glowing review of the quarterback class. And I know it's not considered very strong. So I'd be curious to, once I watch in, to hear what you think, whether these guys are worth that, because in a vacuum, it seems like a good idea because they are kind of in the spot where if they don't get a quarterback round 1, then, they are just kind of punting this year at quarterback with like, okay, it's a bridge year, bridge quarterback. Let's be competitive, maybe compete for a wild card, go get our guy next year. And obviously that's unexciting, even if it is, a sound move versus forcing something. But if there's no one in the first round who's worth it, you just can't force it, as unexciting as it may be. So I'm curious to see whether, we think that it's worth it, or, if the Jets think that, because, maybe one of these guys slip. And maybe that's a golden opportunity to where they're not viewed that highly, but the Jets can get them without trading. Doesn't seem likely, but I don't know if I would want them to trade a, huge package. And those trade ups into the top of the draft, that top 3 to 5, are a lot, even if it's a few spots. Like we know how much they gave up just to get from, 6 to 3 for Darnold.
3 seconds, right?
Yeah. So is that worth it for quarterbacks who aren't even, even if they're picked in those slots without moving?
Worth it,
some people might consider them reaches. So I don't know. Like Jets have a lot of holes, but they also need a franchise quarterback, and they might have to wait until next year to get one if they don't in this draft. But I do feel like that's what's going to end up happening. They're going to punt it. I think they have Tyrod. I think they'll sign someone. I'm on board with Fields for this role, but someone who is a good enough backup to be relied upon for a few games, who's like on similar caliber as Tyrod, and then maybe draft their own guy in the middle rounds who's kind of a wild card with the ceiling, fourth round, maybe third. A guy who, you're not making a huge investment, but Muji's putting his fingerprints on the position, getting someone who can be developed with a new staff. I think it's going to be something like that. And obviously that's not exciting. But there's just not a lot of great options. And I don't think you could force it just for the sake of having a supposed franchise quarterback.
Yeah, it's I could see like if it's a 3rd or 4th round quarterback, bringing in Fields and letting them all compete. If it's like a 1st or 2nd round guy, maybe you don't bring in Fields. Maybe it kind of muddies the room up a little bit too much. But the hard thing with the trading up for the quarterback or the quarterback situation in general is that in 2026, everybody says that the quarterback class is different. But for me, looking at the Jets' talent and the roster, and assuming we're obviously going to add more talent to it, With Tyrod Taylor, I think this is probably, let's say, a 6 to 8 win team next year. Assuming we have competent coaching, I think this is a 6 to 8 win team probably. And then you're at pick, 14, 15, 16. So then next year, there's better quarterbacks, but we're going to be farther down in the draft order. So then do you trade up to 5 or 6 to get the third or fourth best quarterback? And would Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward be the third or fourth best quarterback in next year's draft? You kind of see what I'm saying? Like, are they even going to be able to get the number 1 or 2 or 3 guy in the draft next year, considering that I think they're going to have a better record than they did this year? And are the teams at the top going to even be willing to deal with them? Do they need quarterbacks as well? So if they think that a guy like Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders is worth it to trade up for a couple of picks, I'm completely fine with it. It gives you an extra year of not an extra year. I would say like the fans will be less impatient maybe than they will be in 2026. It's just another year of us missing the playoffs and stuff. Like it allows you to really, hopefully, if it's Cam Ward, let's say, sit him for half a season, maybe even sit him for the full season. I doubt that happens. It doesn't happen anymore in today's NFL. But I think if you do it earlier, it affords you maybe a little more patience with the fans. But nonetheless, I don't see the Jets finishing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 next year. I see them probably picking, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, 16, something like that, based on the talent, on the roster. So it's Cam Ward. I guess we'll see. Meatball Parm says they're crying about Aaron Rodgers are really getting on my nerves. Yeah, it's emotional, man. People are getting like really pissed off if you say you didn't want Aaron Rodgers back. Like there's like shouting. I feel the shouting in the tweets. It's crazy. Beloved P says, I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I feel like some of these guys currently. Actually, I'm gonna wait for a little bit. Some of the messages here too, because I know we have Nania maybe for a limited time, so I want to get out some of the other news that I know Nania can back me up on because we have the articles and all that stuff. But the game management hire, the guy from the Giants. I don't know if you did that article or not. I do like that the Jets hired somebody for game management. Now, I don't know if they had this with their previous regime. It didn't seem like they did because their game management was absolutely brutal, taking 3 timeouts in the first quarter, or taking 3 timeouts in the third quarter, or going into halftime with timeouts and wasting time, or like there be plays where the clock is ticking down. Let's say it's I don't know, like 10 seconds of runoff, where they didn't call a timeout and they call a timeout, or there was one game where they used back-to-back timeouts, wasn't there? Like after a timeout, they used a timeout. So, yeah. there was a time this year where after a timeout, they got like a delay of game. So what how is this even possible? So I like that they brought in somebody for that, and I'm assuming we have some information on I think he was with the Giants from like the 80s until like now, right? Like something really long.
Yeah, he was I think they just said various analytics roles, like 25 years with them, and then he worked for the NFL. He was the VP of replay. So it's just good to see them make a hire in that role, especially with the rookie head coach. As far as I know, I don't remember hearing about them hiring one when they added Saleh. Maybe there was someone held over, but either way, that's a positive. But also, I was just thinking about this while you're talking, but going back to that previous discussion, just
okay.
Even if the Jets did want to trade up for a quarterback, is there even a path for them to do it? Because we assume Cleveland and the Giants are both going to take one. Not guaranteed, but it seems like a strong possibility. And if only Ward and Sanders are the top 2 guys, like how are they going to get past that third pick if the Browns and Giants are unwilling to move? Like, is going up to 1, if the Titans do want to trade, the only way they could do it? Because like you said,
I think at that point you have to hope for like a draft day trade where one of those guys slips past those teams. I don't think you're trading up to 1. That'd be crazy.
Because like you said, like I would be open to it, in the mindset that, like you said, Jets are probably going to win more games next year. That's not to say they're going to win 12, but 6 or 7, maybe you're in the teens, and that's a whole lot different to move up from 7, let alone even have a chance at drafting one without trading. So like, you could do the punting thing with the quarterback position, wait till next year, but then how are you going to do it next year? It's not guaranteed to be there next year either. So that does push me towards like, let's just get it now. But just how do you do it? It's hard to see that path where it's even a realistic option.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to wait for
Unless you
draft
just
day.
reach for 7, like, if you like one of the other
Oh my god.
guys or
No,
but,
at that
you
point,
know
well, 'cause it depends. It depends on who's like that third quarterback. I know a lot of people are saying Dart because of the last week of hype
yeah.
from the Senior Bowl and stuff. Where I've saw conflicting reports about how good his Senior Bowl even was. I see some people have Milrow second, so I don't know who that second guy is. And then it's a situation where like, hey, we draft this guy in the second round, in 2025. So now we're going to skip on the guy in the first round in 2026, a la, the Christian Hackenberg situation from
Right.
2017, where we then skipped on Mahomes and well, obviously Watson. But yeah, nonetheless. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do with the quarterback situation. And again, people will use that. Oh, see, that's why we should keep Rodgers. Again, Rodgers is not the answer to the quarterback situation. He is for 1 year, but overall, it's not the answer. I don't care about this year. We're not going anywhere. So even though yes, I would like to win like everybody else. Again, we'll keep trickling through the news a little bit. Running back coach, we hired a running back coach from college. I don't think we have a ton of info on the
Yeah,
running
I
backs
wasn't
coach,
able to
right?
find that much on him. He
Yeah,
was at Minnesota. It wasn't
I
able
was
to
hoping
find
for
too
like
much.
Anthony Lynn. Maybe Anthony Lynn get some experience on the offensive side. He started off with the running back coach, I believe, actually with the Jets. I don't know. He was a running back coach prior to that, but I know he's with the Jets as a running back coach. So I was hoping for him. Getting a guy from college, all right. I can say I do not love necessarily the inexperience on the offensive staff. Now I know they brought in what's his face to was it I forget his name off the top of my head. Is he going to be the pass game coordinator? We brought in from I completely forgot what his name was, but I know we brought in like a pass game coordinator.
Yeah.
He's somebody's kids. It's
Scott,
not
right?
Kubiak. Oh yeah, yes. Scott is Scott Turner's kid.
Scott Turner. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So his kid, and I think he's going to be the pass game coordinator for the Jets. I forgot to write anything down about him, but I like that he has some experience. I believe he was with the Raiders last year, and was there interim or he was their OC? I forget exactly, but there's some experience on the staff. But still, running backs coach was in college. Offensive line coach was a tight ends coach, and he's relatively raw. You have some experience with Sean Jefferson, but I could say I do not love the offensive staff and the running backs coach. I'm pretty lukewarm on just bringing in a guy from Minnesota college without really having a great resume, in my opinion, or at least I can't say great resume. It's just not expansive.
Yeah, a lot of inexperience on the offensive staff. And I mean, like it kind of feels like high risk, high reward. It's something that if things don't work out for this offense in a year, 2 years, we could easily look back and say they should have hired more experienced coaches and it could have been traced back to this, hiring guys with good reputation. They didn't have the resume, things like that. I could see it playing out that way. But at the same time, you know, all the hires are made based off of, merit and reputation, even if we can't see it as clearly from the outside or attribute it to this unit was productive or this unit was productive. Like all the hires are made based off some form of merit. So, if some of these hires are maybe a little more ambitious and inexperienced, it does also provide some upside that Glenn is, building something a little more handcrafted than, rather than hiring more experienced guys. So there's some upside to it, but it is a little concerning for sure.
Oh yeah, so we got a super chat here from our guy Dom C, who, and thank you for the super chat, obviously, who's I know a lot more into the college game than I am, and I haven't really watched the quarterbacks yet. But my question for you then, Dom, and his super chat says, my opinion only, I know you guys will form your own. I'm not mortgaging my already thinned out future draft capital thanks to JD Redick for either QB who I don't see as franchise changing players. So my question would be, is quarterback 3, 4, 5 next year? Are they franchise changing players as at either? So then if they're not, do we wait until 2027? Like that's kind of my point. I don't know if the Jets are getting the first, the second, the third best guy next year. Again, assuming that they'll be decent this year. So that's the main question about it again, or is it 2027? But then at that point we build up the roster even more. And then is there a guy that draft? Like, do we keep, at what point do we not stop like kicking the can down the road
Right.
with
Yeah.
this? I'm not saying we have been necessarily, but it's just the thing where I don't think they're gonna be high enough to grab one of those guys next year. And I'm sure you'll answer in the chat, Dom, if you're still here. This was 7 minutes ago, so maybe you are. Watch out for that, Nani, if you are. But I just or if you're in the chat, but yeah, I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know how strong 2026 is. But yeah, running backs coach again. They hired Turner. Oh yeah, Scott Turner. So it was Norv Turner's son, Scott Turner. Was with the Raiders, right? Now, am I wrong on where exactly?
Yeah, he was the pass game coordinator and then interim OC.
Okay, so he's the interim OC again, more experience to the staff, which I like, and people will look and be like, "Oh my God, the Raiders. What did they do?" Well, who did they have on there?
For OC for 3 years before that.
Okay, so an OC for 3 years before that. So again, some experience, whether it be good or bad. And you look at the Raiders' offense and who they have last year, in terms of like, oh well, he had a bad offense. Like, yeah, his team was brutal. So I do like the experience there. They end up bringing in another guy to the staff, which is Rick Spielman, which I guess a little bit kind of maybe not coincidental. Actually, it's probably not coincidental, but the fact that he runs the hiring process, the 33rd team with Mike Tannenbaum, and now he's a part of the staff. He was with the Vikings. He was their GM for 9 years, I believe. Also a GM with the Dolphins for just 1 year. But you look at some of the drafts he's had in his tenure. His draft record's actually pretty good. I don't know if you put out an article on that, but I saw like he drafted Eric Hendricks in the mid rounds, a couple of other guys in the mid rounds. Obviously, got Justin Jefferson, wanted Justin Jefferson over Rager. That worked out really well. So a guy with plenty of experience, plenty of connections, was in the league for many, many years as a GM. And it seems like he's going to be like a sounding board. It sounds like he's almost going to be kind of like the buffer between Woody Johnson and Moogie and Aaron Glenn, and that's something we definitely wanted. So I would say out of all of these hires, or out of most of these hires, this is probably one of my favorite ones. Like this is probably my second favorite hire behind Aaron Glenn, honestly. They brought Spielman in.
Yeah, I mean his brother Chris has held a similar role with the Lions, so it's kind of seems like a bonus kind of advantage. Like it's not a shoe-in role that you always talk about or all teams necessarily have, but just to add another experienced guy for more insight, different perspective, especially with a young or inexperienced pairing of head coach and GM is definitely a positive.
Yeah, no doubt. Another move they bring in is the corners coach. This is something I said specifically on Twitter because they've got it's Chris Harris was the coordinator that we got from the Titans, right? He was the defensive pass game coordinator, and it was actually a point I brought up to Dom on Twitter. I believe it was you, Dom, where I think you said like, hey, like I thought Chris Harris was the DB's coach, and he is the DB's coach. He's also the pass game coordinator, and I wanted to see the Jets bring in a cornerbacks coach and a safety coach just to not like put too much on his plate. And they did end up hiring a corner coach. I'm not sure if they hire a safety coach as well, but they brought in Dre Bly to be their cornerbacks coach, who was a Pro Bowl corner for the Lions and coached under Aaron Glenn in 2023. So some more players, former players on the staff, which is obviously a huge emphasis of the staff is the former players, like it was with the Lions. A former Pro Bowl corner, has coached under Aaron Glenn before. I like this hire. And again, one of the main reasons is specifically to not overload Chris Harris's play, because it's going to be hard, in my opinion, to coach corners, safeties, and be the defensive pass game corner. That just seems like quite a bit. So why not bring in a corners coach and a safety coach? So I definitely like the corner coach hire there.
Yeah, I agree. And you called that out when the Harris hire was first announced. So yeah, definitely good that they got at least one more coach in there to delegate some of that work.
Another one we could talk about really quickly because I actually like them. Tell me why Andrew Beck is the new Kyle Juszczyk, Nani. How do you feel about Andrew Beck?
Well, I told you. You asked me, is he even worth watching film on? And I said he started for Houston this year. He's played a lot of snaps. I think he's kind of good. And then you brought the report back to me that like you just said, I think those are your words, that he's the next Kyle Juszczyk in this Jets. He had that kick. Did you see the kickoff return touchdown that he had?
Did I see it? I'll show.
Oh yeah, you posted that. That's right.
Yeah, definitely. I posted that was the day that I was arguing with people for like I don't even know how many
So he's
hours.
Xavier Gibson plus use check all in one, or Gibson
Yeah.
replacement.
So he's I think he's right here, and then he like fumbles it, or hey, he goes to grab it, and the guy like kind of disrupts the catch a little bit. But and obviously we're not expecting him to be a full blown he's not a returner for the Jets, but
Yeah.
I'll be pretty transparent. Like I'm through 8-9 weeks of his 2023 season, and I plan on watching 2024 as well. And I wish I could just show a bunch of play. And I'm not trying to get people too excited about fullbacks and things like that, but I really like him as a fullback for the Jets. So I'm not sure if I have any like it's not a lot of plays where it's like he's not somebody who necessarily decleats people, even though this play it says lead block decleat. He's not a guy who necessarily blows guys up, but he's really smart with angles, really good with his hand placement. He's really good in space in terms of like breaking down and finding a guy in space and not being necessarily overzealous in the open field. I think he's pretty strong. His routes are actually like I watched him run a dig route and I was like, oh, like he actually got over his toes and got the break pretty well. Like I like this Beck thing. And again, I'm not just trying to like blow smoke up his ass, but I watched him fully expecting to be completely bored throughout the entire film review and like see a bunch of whiffs like Nick Bawden and all this stuff. And I watched him like another good block, another good block, another good block. And another thing that I want to add to it too is like he's very good at kind of adjusting and being patient through chaos, which is a big thing in football because you could be expecting the tackle to kick out that D end, and then the DN and then the DN shoots inside of the tackle and then it blows up the whole play. But he'll find a block and not just like, oh, well, I was supposed to go through the B gap. I have to go through the B gap now. It's like, oh shit, no, the tackle got beat inside. I got to adjust. I got to go through the C gap. I was supposed to block this guy, but he over pursued. I'm going to find somebody else. Like he's very good at adjusting on the fly. And I'm not trying to get again so much into fullbacks here, but I was excited about it. And I'm not necessarily somebody to just blow smoke up people's asses. So I think he should work. I know that there was some efficiency stuff with the Texans offense, right? Where in 20, and this is something like some people defended Bobby Slowick because of this, like, hey, I think this was in relation to Bobby Slowick, but in 2023 he ran more 21 personnel where he had the fullback on the field, and then his offensive efficiency dropped in 2024, and he used less fullback. So I'm not sure why they did that because Beck seemed pretty effective in 2023. Less snaps in 24. Their offensive efficiency went down. I'm not saying that Beck was the only reason for that. Obviously, their offensive line and stuff struggled as well. But interesting move. Again, just seeing him claimed at this time, I was like, oh, he's just another scrub. He's a camp body. But then I watched him like, dude, I think this is the Jets starting fullback for next year, especially considering that the Lions and the tendencies we're expecting with Engstrom are to be a little bit more 12-21 personnel heavy.
Yeah, if nothing else, it definitely is somewhat of, or it could be somewhat of an indicator of what their plans are on offense to come right out and sign a fullback who is not a Pro Bowler or anything, but like you said, like he's played a lot of snaps, been a starter. He's a roster worthy fullback for sure. So the fact that they came right out and made that addition could be a signal that it's even if it's not him, at the very least is a position that they have plans of using, which could signal that maybe this Lions model is what they're going towards: run first, bigger personnel packages. So if hopefully he can make the roster and make sort of the impact that you saw through your film review so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not done yet. I'm going to keep obviously running through it, and I would say most times, 90% of the times, he's patient in the open field. There is some times where he tries to lay like a huge shot on somebody, but it is much more less than guys like Bawden or Ruckert, who can just not slow his feet at all before he goes in the blocks. Ruckert was beyond brutal with that, which, speaking of Ruckert, like all the needs we have, like tight end 1, 2, receiver 2, 3, corner.
Tight end
2,
is huge, and like I was talking about it I did an article today looking at some like bargain free agents they could target where they could find some value with scheme fits, and I pointed out Mo Alley Cox from the Colts. But regardless of it's him or whether it's him or whoever else, they really need to prioritize tight end beyond just who the starter is. And having a good pass catcher there, the second guy is going to be important too, because again, if they run the Lions offense or something close to it, it's going to be a lot of multi tight end sets. So that second tight end is going to play a lot. And when he does, it's going to be a lot of run plays. They ran at a very high rate when they did use 12 personnel. And when they did, it was a lot of strong side runs. So behind the tight ends rather than them being on the backside. So whoever the tight end two is going to play a lot, and he's going to do a lot of run blocking where he's a fixture in the play. So it's a pretty important role. And it's, to be frank, it's not a role you want Jeremy Ruckert playing. So they definitely have to find some legitimate options on that depth chart, going down to the third guy because players are going to get injured. So, and they don't have anything right now to be, I don't think they have a single rosterable tight end.
That's the thing. And like, okay, yeah, obviously we're creating a hole if Adams leaves. I get that. But even with Adams, they need tight end 1, they need tight end 2. They might even need tight end 3. Ruckert, I don't think should be a tight end 3 at this point. It's been pretty much that bad. You need a right tackle. You need defensive tackle 2, 3, and 4. You need corner 2. You need linebacker 2. Like they have quite a few holes. And again, if this was 2023 Jets, their defensive line was still, in my opinion, a top 3, if not, or top 5, if not top 3 defensive line that year. Joe Douglas dismantled that defensive line. And that's part of my presentation as well, talking about how bad that was with trading for a guy, who was in a contract holdout thinking he would just magically play for you on that same contract. But nonetheless, again, yeah, if this was a 2023 Jets, I think the whole Rodgers thing would be different. Just looking at the team now, again, so many holes. We need 2 starting safeties, right? They have Tony Adams still, but I think he's kind of shown that he's more of a backup level player. At this point, I was quite disappointed by his 2024 season. So they just need so much. So I'm gonna keep running through the chat. Nani, I don't know what time you're trying to drop off, but I'm gonna run ththrough the chat now. I don't know if there's any other Jets news. Okay, yeah, I don't know if there's any other Jets news to cover, so we'll say goodbye to Nania. I'm gonna stay on. Obviously, I'm gonna run through the chat, and then I think at some point I got to bring up my Twitter, Nania. So I'm gonna do that and just show some of the stupid responses I get to obvious questions.
I saw some of them. They're coming up.
Like just like ridiculous things, man. Like, and obviously it's not this exact example, but Nania, what 2 + 2 = 4? Like that's the question I'm asking. Hey, Twitter, 2 + 2 =, and they'll be like, well, based on sundials with the Aztecs, some people actually don't. I'm like, oh my god, dude, just tell me the answer. Like, answer my freaking question. I'm like, just ridiculous. So I'll do that. But I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll be talking very soon. So.
There's always like before I hop off quick, there's always like that assumption that like when you believe one thing, it means the complete opposite you're against. There's that one meme or whatever where it's like, I love waffles. You just say that, no context, and then someone replies to you, they're like, oh, so you hate pancakes then? That's that's the vibe I got from all of your responses. It's like, just because you have a logical argument why they shouldn't keep a certain football player that has sound reasoning that you presented. It just means like all these other things as well, just for no reason.
Yeah, it was almost as simple as, hey, if you think the Jets are going to win 2-3 games without Rodgers, and then you think he's going to win 9 or 10 games with him, you're crazy. And then people are like, oh, you're making excuses for Aaron Glenn. I'm like, when did I even mention Aaron Glenn? Like, what are you talking about, Aaron Glenn? I was like, this is just ridiculous. So I'm gonna highlight some of that in a little bit. But again, I appreciate you for coming on. I'm sure you'll be hopping on soon, and we'll be talking.
Absolutely.
All right. So as we lose Nania, we'll go through some of the chats again, kind of old school style, which I'm still going to do, by the way. I don't think Nania's going to jump on every week. I think he's mostly committed to like every other week or so. And I've just hijacked him for the last like 3 weeks or so as I'm getting back into this. Connor Long's in here as well. At least he was. I saw him saying Nania, the voice of reason. I do plan on going on Connor's show probably either this weekend or the next weekend, but I definitely owe Connor a stream. I've been super busy and if not busy, just out of the Jet stuff a little bit, but we're back. Russell Wilson really needs to retire. Yeah, sure. I don't think he needs to retire, right? Like he could be a backup at this point, or even a starter for a team who's looking for a bridge type quarterback. Hopefully that's not the Jets. I would lose my mind if Russell Wilson, just the cringe factor of him alone. I couldn't really deal with it, but nonetheless, Quinn Williams is tired of restarting. I can understand him wanting to be mediocre with Aaron Rodgers. Like, yeah, okay, but if Rodgers was a mediocre, if Rodgers was Kirk Cousins and Kirk Cousins was 32 years old, and he would sign the dotted line for 5 years of Kirk Cousins. And yeah, I understand it, but he wants to be mediocre for 1 year. Like, yeah, I understand. I get it, but it's still stupid to put it on Twitter. I don't see the point in putting it out on Twitter. But yeah, mediocre for a year. It's not mediocre for 3 or 4. Why not restart the build now? That's my opinion. So, let's see. Q is a double team must. That means offensive schemes around Q. Yeah, no doubt. And it opens up a lot of other guys. And that's another question with the defensive line too. Like you're talking about the holes and all this stuff. I didn't mention D end. They Mike Clemens isn't going to be on the team hopefully, but Will McDonald is still unproven in the run game, and JJ just tore his he didn't tear his Achilles. Was it his Achilles or his ACL? It might have been his Achilles. I think it actually was his Achilles. So he tore his Achilles. Is he even going to be the same player? Like that's a big question as well. So do you have 2 pass rushers? Do you have 2 run stoppers? On that defensive line, and they may not, because obviously Will McDonald struggles to stop the run. And at this point, if JJ lost his explosion, he's not going to be able to really rush the passer great, because he's never been elite at it or even really good at it. He was more of an average pass rusher, but if he tore his Achilles, how's he going to be next year? Realistically, he's probably not going to be the most efficient pass rusher next year. I'm not trying to shit on JJ. It's just the reality of coming off that injury and the reality of his kind of career so far. He has not been a great pass rusher. It's been more effort sacks and things like that. So we'll see. I think the defensive line's in need. I think there's a reason that people are talking, or obviously defensive tackle is, but even DN, there's a reason that people were mocking us, Abdul Carter. And now there's this dude from, was it Georgia? Georgia's the other D end. I'm going to watch him, I think, next, actually. I'm on Will Campbell next, or I'm on Will Campbell. I'm almost done with Will Campbell. And then I'm going to watch, what's his name? Jalen Walker is the guy I'm going to watch. So more of a D end. And there's a reason that people are mocking us D ends, is because the Jets D end situation is not like solved. Like they could still use more there as well. So another thing, Joe and Nani, have you guys watched any film on Luther Burden yet? No, I have not. Again, like with many other draft seasons, with a full-time job and then also trying to prepare Jets reviews, like I'm watching Andrew Beck right now. I'm a little bit through the Jets season, like watching Sauce and all these guys to do reviews on them later on in the season. So I cannot watch 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds of prospects. And for people who know me, I try to watch 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a whole season of games of these college prospects. So to do that for 200 and 230 guys, whatever it is, I would either need one of 2 things. It's either 1, no wife and kid, or 2, no job, no full-time jobs. And both of those things are sticking around. So I can't watch 200 prospects. It's impossible. So I tend to stick to the first round, do 5, 10, maybe 15 guys. And then I evaluate after the Jets draft these guys and I watch their film. So let's say Kirk Cousins never wanted to come here. Why would he do that now? I'm sure he can find a team other than the Jets to go to. I'm sure he could find another team to go to, but Kirk Cousins is also at a much different point in his career at, 2017 or 2016, whatever year that was that he decided to go to the Vikings. I think it was probably, it was like 2016, 2015, maybe even before that. I forget exactly what year that was. But nonetheless, he's obviously a lot older now. So if the Jets were offering him money, I think he's going to go anywhere where the money's highest, or he has an opportunity to start so he can prove himself. It's not like Kirk Cousins is in his prime anymore. So it's obviously different. With Kirk Cousins, 8 years, 8-year difference makes a big impact on guys' careers. So I think Kirk Cousins would come to the Jets potentially, but is that something that we prefer? Probably not. Like I would prefer the more exciting option with some upside. Like I would prefer Fields over Cousins, but if it was Cousins, I wouldn't be terribly mad. Tyrod and Kirk. And again, this is nothing I'm excited about. Like I'm not like, oh my God, I can't wait to buy season tickets and go watch Kirk Cousins and Tyrod. But 2025 with or without Rodgers, it's not going to be a season where they make a deep playoff run regardless. So I'd rather save the money. Again, I think it makes it a little bit easier on coaches to establish their themselves without Rodgers there. That's just the reality of it. It's not because he's a bad guy or anything like that. Polarizing, again, I said it 3 times now, polarizing is polarizing. He's going to carry weight in that locker room no matter what. And a rookie OC to stand up to Rodgers, it's a lot to me. It is. Signed Milton Williams to unleash Quinn Williams. I know some people have like thought about like Mark and Davenport, Milton Williams. First time I've heard about people mentioning his name, but if he's a good D tackle, yeah, man. The Jets D tackle situation was god awful last year. Kinlaw. I'm not sure how many people weren't here last year. I'm sure a lot of you weren't here last year as well. If you're watching this, you're a diehard. But it's something that I said from the jump last year when they got Kinlaw. I'm like, I do not understand how they gave this guy double the money of Quentin Jefferson, or they got rid of JFM for Kinlaw's money. Like, how are you not paying JFM over Kinlaw, and how are you paying double the money for Kinlaw over JFM? Over Quentin Jefferson. It's a thing where Saleh liked his guys. He gave his guys opportunities, but Kinlaw's tape with the Niners was terrible. And that's why I watched him like, dude, you guys are not going to like this player. He's not going to be good with the Jets. And people are like, oh, he's a top of the first round draft pick. Saleh, he's changed these guys. And, I kind of thought the same thing. Like, if anybody can change him, it's Saleh and White Cotton. They developed these guys well. But with that being said, his 2023 film was garbage. Like, how did they sign this guy for $7 million? And he sucked ass last year. So we got to stop as fans doing the whole, and obviously these guys know more than any of us do, but like the appeal to authority thing, whereas, everything the Jets do are right because they're in the NFL and you're not. It's like, okay, fine. Then drafting Evan Neal in the top 5 was a right thing as well. And, obviously that wasn't either, right? Like, the Giants know more than us. No, they don't. In that situation, they didn't. They drafted Evan Neal, and he was garbage in college, in my opinion. Garbage. So Kirk Cousins can't move yet. He looked pretty bad last year. I know at the end of the year he struggled pretty bad too. So Cam Ward is the best QB prospect since Joe Burrow traded all capital for him. I'm not saying I can't say you're wrong, Matt, because I haven't watched him personally. So I'm not going to say, hey, you're pound the table. You're absolutely wrong. Have I seen him spoke about that way? Like, have people been speaking about him like he's that prospect? I haven't seen that at all. So you may be on an island there, which is completely fine. Like, if he's right, if you're right, he comes in, dominates, then you look great. I can't say that. I can't say I've seen anything even close to that in terms of like the hype around him. And I saw Dom answer. It's like, he thinks the 3rd and 4th prospects may be better next year. I can't attest to that, but it seems hard to believe that there's 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks all better than what Shedeur Sanders and Ward are this year. But again, that's with me not watching anything and admitting that, oh, you know what? My camera was sucking this entire time. This is my real camera. There we go. I realized, I'm like, why do I look so different right now? There we go. I was using my FaceTime camera on my laptop. I should look a lot clearer now, right? I definitely look a lot clearer. I have to, because this camera is not cheap, and the computer one is 8 years old. So there we go. Good point. I don't know what it is, but I'll assume I made it. Thank you. Bro, I'm taking Kyle McCord or Will McDonald all day. We're talking about Will Howard. The only thing I've seen with Will Howard, and I saw a little bit in passing too, because Ohio State play a lot of, obviously teams that have like draftable players and stuff like that. I didn't see like the great, and again, maybe this was just in passing and maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. Maybe he was hurt. I don't know his injury history. It didn't look like he had like an NFL type arm, where, like, I'm not saying he can't play in the NFL, but I don't know if he would thrive in the NFL with what I saw from his arm. And it seemed to be pretty damn inaccurate sometimes. So I don't know if I love Will Howard. Maybe he's a guy who's like relatively safe because he goes through his reads and he's mechanically sound. Like, I didn't evaluate him like that, but just watching specifically his arm at times, I was left wanting more. Just because, like, hey, you hear his name, so I pay attention to him a little bit in passing as I'm watching other guys on film, and I don't think his ceiling's overly high. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'll watch him back at the Jets draft and like, oh my God, I was so wrong. I'm an idiot. Or he had a shoulder injury or something like that, and that limited his arm strength. But I don't know about Will Howard. I rather think a guy with a little bit higher upside, at least based on the very limited watching that I did. Okay. We need some new, I don't know what this person's even saying, but that guy's banned. We need some new moderators in here to ban some of those people. I don't know how that comment was up there for like 30 minutes. I know we have some moderators. Draft Will Camp from Stanley Man. Draft Will Campbell at 1, or in the first round. Milrose. We're talking about Milrow, like the quarterback from Bama, right? Unless there's a Milrose, or could be a Milrose at 2 and a good blocking tight end at 3. Now, again, like Milrow is a guy who seemed like he was a first round guy, and now he's dropping to like second, third round for some people, and some people are completely out on him. If they draft him in the second round, again, with watching nothing on him, I wouldn't be terribly mad. Shot in the dark a little bit. Good blocking tight end in the third round. I hope he would offer a little bit more in the third round than just a good blocking tight end, but nonetheless. And Will Campbell at 7, I wouldn't be mad. I can tell you guys that I've watched so far Mason Graham, Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, Will Campbell, Warren, and McMillan. And as of right now, my big board for the Jets is out of those 5 guys, I'd personally prefer Graham. With Johnson being a close second, it's like a 1A, 1B thing. Those 2 are on a tier of their own to me. It drops off a little bit to Will Campbell as my 3rd out of those 5. Tyler Warren, the tight end, being 4th, and McMillan being the 5th. McMillan is, and I get it's not all drafts are different, and some are more stacked in the middle round, some are stacked at the end, some are stacked at the top 5 or whatever, and I get that. But with that being said, McMillan, I would be pretty lukewarm on at 7. I'll be completely transparent. I don't like saying that, because why not be transparent all the time? I don't mean to say that. It's almost like saying but it's a thing where I see him as a downgraded Drake London, and I like Drake London and all that stuff, but McMillan just not necessarily my cup of tea, I could say. I was left wanting more for him. So if it was the pick, I wouldn't necessarily hate it because they need a receiver. But I do feel like it's a little bit of a reach there at 7 personally. So next year's a better QB crop. I wouldn't trade for one this year. Again, and the point I made with Nani is I get that, but let's say you finish better. You finish at pick 15. And then the top 3 teams all need quarterbacks. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Their quarterbacks are gone. Then you're screwed. Like, it's just a thing where if you think that quarterback 3, 4, 5, 6 are as good as Sanders and Ward, then okay. But I wouldn't just bank on, like, if it's only a top heavy class where the 1, 2, and 3 are good. I don't know if you can just kick the can down to next year. But again, I don't really watch a ton of college football. I'm more NFL, obviously a lot more NFL. And then past the NFL, I like the other 3 major sports, with hockey being my 2 and probably baseball my 3 at this point. NBA fell off. They're definitely my 4th. Used to be my 1. I used to love the NBA as a kid, but it's just bad now, in my opinion. So Webb Film says Shedeur Sanders is going to be special. I watched all of his games in college. He is special. Okay. Well, hopefully the Jets draft him then. The only thing with Sanders that scares me a little bit is Woody Johnson, the Sanders family, Shedeur. If they start losing some games, is Dion going to come out and start talking crap about the Jets on the social media or on ESPN? I don't love the volatility of that situation if it goes bad because of the name on the back of the jersey. So if all things being equal, let's say that both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders finished with an 8.3 out of 10 in my ranking system, I would prefer Ward over Sanders just to avoid some of the circus aspect that could come with Sanders. But if Sanders is the better quarterback, like no doubt about it, when I watched the 2 of them, then I'd prefer Sanders. But I would prefer Ward just because of strictly that. Like the name on the back of the jersey scares me a little bit. Grove Pete, what's up? Again, I'm catching up with the chat here a little bit. And then once I get up with the chat, I got to show you guys at least like just a segment of my Twitter, because some of the responses to some of the shit I put out is just wild. And then I'll press people like, hey man, you did not answer my question. And they keep dodging and dodging and dodging. I'll tell people like, listen, if we're not willing to even answer basic questions, I'm not going to have conversations with people on Twitter. I've had a little bit more time the last couple of days. So I've been arguing a little bit more, but I'm going to drop off again. It's too hard. Rob D, can Will Campbell play tackle, or is he inevitably going to play guard? I want to see his arm length. I don't think his arm length is super short. But to me, if a guy like Fuaga can play tackle, then so can Will Campbell. I don't think it's a thing where he definitely can't be a tackle. To me, it's a situation where you try him at tackle. If he fails at tackle, you move him to guard. If a team drafted him at 10, 11, 12, 13 to just strictly be a guard, I would understand it. But it's not a thing where I watch Will Campbell, I'm saying, oh, he definitely cannot play tackle. That's not true, at least in my opinion. Everybody looks at it differently, but I think he's fine. If you're saying he can't play tackle strictly because of the arm length, okay, fine. I just don't think his arm's going to be that short. And there are some examples of guys being decent tackles with shorter arms. AVT, shorter arms, and when he plays tackle, he's at least decently solid, whilst being moved around the entire offensive line. So I'm sure if AVD can just stick at tackle for years and years and years, he'd be even better than he was. So you could be a solid tackle with somewhat shorter arms. I think even Joe Alt, he's very tall, but his arms are short, and obviously he did pretty good in his first year. So Jets are going to the playoffs. I don't, hey, power to you. I hope they do as well. I don't think so, but let's see. We will have a need for guard in 1 year. Can play Will attack. Yeah, that's possible for Will Campbell. Play him at tackle for a year, right tackle. If it doesn't work out, play him at left guard next year. I think Simpson's young enough where you could sign him back if he fits the scheme and all of that stuff. He was one of the bigger surprises of this year, at least to fans. I would say Nania was number one on the John Simpson, fan club, but I was probably number two. I watched him, dude, this guy is pretty damn solid. So, yeah, I could see that, but I also don't mind signing John Simpson to an extension, even in this offseason, because he was pretty solid last year. So, let's see. Rodgers is not retiring. You'll see him on another team. It's fine. And it's a thing where people somebody on Twitter was like, oh, well, the Steelers are going to get Rodgers and they're going to go to the playoffs. It's okay, but the Steelers made the playoffs last year. Us and the Steelers were at different points with the roster. If the Jets had the Steelers roster, and I thought that, okay, with Aaron Rodgers, they can actually win a playoff game or two, I would say, yeah. But we have different rosters. We're not the same starting point as the Steelers, right? So, yeah, it would hurt a little bit, but I can also acknowledge that our rosters are in different spots. So if he goes to a team, if he goes to the Raiders, I'm not worried about it at all because he's going to suck with the Raiders most likely too because they don't have talent. If he goes to the Steelers, yeah, the expectation would be for him to make the playoffs, but so did Russell Wilson, and they probably would have with Justin Fields. It doesn't say much. We're at different points. So, let's see. Okay, keep going through. I'm still 30 minutes or 40 minutes behind the chat. I always am. So I definitely want to catch up before I get into my Twitter thing a little bit. Do you believe there's any chance to draft Genty? I think Jets fans overrate Breece Hall a bit. He's a good back, but not elite. I think it's a possibility. Is it smart to start off your rebuild with a running back? Probably not. Do I think it's a possibility? Sure. Do I still, with that being said, do I think it's a low chance? Yes. I think Breece Hall and his first year was great. If I'm being completely honest here, I think to call Breece Hall good last year, he's even a reach. I think Breece Hall was mid at best last year, and that's just not just by me. That's by the yards per carry. That's by the broken tackles. That's his speed numbers, acceleration dropped. So he was almost better in 2023 coming off of an ACL injury than he was in 2024. He lost explosion the second year after injury, which makes no sense to me. Wasn't overly creative in the open field, was not great at breaking arm tackles. I think he lacked creativity. There were some times where, and I think maybe in the review I'm doing some Breece Hall, but there were some times where Breece Hall just fell, saw that he was going to get tackled and fell. Not even driving his shoulder and trying to pick up an extra yard or two, just fall on the ground. So Breece Hall was mid at best last year. And that I'm not trying to be dramatic or anything like that for, the likes or the comments or anything like that. Mid at best. And I'm I really truly mean that he was bad last year, for at least for him. It was not impressive, at all. There's a lot of running backs in the NFL who are better than him. So I think Good's even a reach, beloved piece. So if fans think he still could be great, no doubt about it, but his last year was extremely discouraging. I think most likely this is his last year in green and white, which, listen, it's a running back. I'm not going to lose my mind over, as long as Garrett and Sauce are here, it should be fine. And some other guys, but Breece stinks. He's above average, but well below elite. I think in his overall career, we could say he's above average, but last year was not above average. I'll say that there's no way you could look at him last year and his numbers and the film and say he was above average. So Jets draft Cedar Sanders or Travis Hunter if he falls. I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement, that they'll draft one of them if they fall. I would assume, they probably would. Travis Hunter, I think people say he's a better corner than he is a receiver, so they need corner too. I'll be completely okay with that. And Shedeur, obviously, we've talked plenty about the quarterback situation, so I'd also be okay with that. And people with Will Johnson too, and the corner from Texas I'm going to watch. I think it's Brown. His last name is Brown. People are like, oh, you can't draft a corner. We're invested in Sauce. It's like we need a corner too as well. Like there's no problem with me having an elite corner trio. It's not a thing where you're drafting a corner. He's going to be your corner 4 and play 15% of the snaps. If you draft a corner 2, he's going to play 100% of the snaps. But those same people are like, oh, draft Mason Graham. Mason Graham will come in here and he'll play 65-70% of the snaps, but you're gonna like shit on a corner 2 who would play 100% of the snaps. It's kind of crazy to me, but nonetheless. Okay, let's keep going down. Shedeur is a mid-second round talent, not close to. Was it? Oh, you said Matthew Smith said that Ward was his guy, right? So I watched every game of the 2 and are spectacular. Who are you talking about? Oh, Shedeur and Hunter, yeah. Well, it's crazy that Hunter was playing both sides of the ball at the collegiate level. That's obviously crazy. Nani, tell Joe he's got a super chat. Thanks for letting me know danger. Okay. Yes, Nor Turner is Scott's dad, which people are saying like nepotism, but based on what I looked at, his resume is actually like pretty solid for his age. I don't think it's like a nepotism thing. I don't. Now his start might have been, but I think he's actually been like he's relatively well regarded in league circles. So I don't think it's a thing where, oh, daddy got me the job. At least that, he's earned his reputation, even though I would say that's probably how he obviously broke through. Ward or Sanders would have been a 5th pick in last year's draft. Talking about a 5th round pick, that's not true. A 5th pick, maybe the 5th round pick. No, trade Adams for anything. No, you're not going to trade him for anything. He's owed $40 million, I believe. They could save $29 million by cutting him. I think they get $11 million dead. So who's going to trade for a $40 million receiver? Who's 32 years old, 33? They'll just cut him. They're not going to get anything from Adams or for Adams because teams are going to know that they're going to cut him. What's the point in trading for him at that point? Bring Conklin back on a cheap deal. Give him borderline tight end. Yeah, dude, I'm with you. I'm completely fine with signing Conklin to a $7-8 million contract. A guy who's been a top half of the league tight end. I'm not sure where he finished in terms of his receiving numbers. His receiving numbers this year, but his first 2 years, he was like top 10 receiving guard for tight ends, playing with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and all these scrubs at quarterback. Conklin to me is a solid receiving tight end. Now he has a lot to go in terms of blocking. It fell off. I thought he's actually a better blocker with Minnesota than he was with the Jets, but he's a solid receiving tight end, and that's more than we can say that we have in the group. Like, we have nothing in the group. If you're telling me you're bringing in a top 10, 15 receiving tight end in the NFL, yeah, do it. The guy is a good route runner. He catches everything that comes his way, more so in 2023 than 2024. But 2023, he only had like 8-9 contested catch opportunities, and every single one he made. I think maybe he missed one, but Conklin's a solid receiving tight end. Project prospect, Dom C. You need a safety 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Like, hey, if the Jets brought back Chuck Clark to be safety 3, okay, he's just physically limited at this point. But safety 3, okay. Cody Adams, safety 3, okay. Jalen Mills, safety 3 or 4, okay, I'm okay with that. But at the minimum, they need safety 1 and 2, completely new safeties. If they bring back some of the older guy or the last year's guys, I think you're only talking about safety 2 or safety 3 and 4. I'm gonna have to hold on. I'm gonna put up a membership ad really quickly because I'll just be honest here. I gotta go to the bathroom, so I'll be back in like a minute or two. Answer the rest of the chats, and then we're going to get into how stupid Joe's Twitter is.
Become a JetX member today for the very best in New York Jets all 22 film content, analytics, credentialed access, and much more. Plus, check out our all-new JetX YouTube membership option that features the very best in film breakdowns, live streaming priority, and a chance to meet Wayne Corbett in the Underdog Jets podcast next meet and greet. Links are available below in the video description.
Hello, everybody. All right, we are back. Let's get back into the chat. That was like I had to go so bad where it's like, do I either end the stream right now or I continue to talk to you guys? And I want to keep going through the chats. So we're going to continue going. Yeah, just don't give Conklin the starting spot, but you could do worse. In a retool type year, if Conklin is your tight end one, completely fine. I think Conklin could be a tight end one for a good team. I think in a better, more efficient offense that actually utilizes the middle of the field, Conklin would be much more appreciated by Jets fans. I think Conklin is a guy who's legitimately underrated by fans. I do. Aaron Glenn didn't even coach yet. Give him a chance. Are you talking to me or other people? Because other people, that's the problem with other people. It's like, hey, I trust whatever Aaron Glenn and Muji decide to do, but then they get rid of Rodgers and it's, oh, this guy sucks. Get rid of him. He's going to be a bust as a coach. It's like, what is talking about, dude? What are you talking about? No skills with the super chat. Your take on quarterback hand size. I was more dubious. Quarterback hand size, it matters. Like NFL football is pretty damn big, and if you don't have the hands, the hand size to grip the ball properly, it can come out weird. You can be trying to squeeze it too hard to maintain your grip on it. Obviously, if you don't have a great grip on it, you're going to lose fumbles more easily. So yeah, you need to have a what it's like 9-inch hands typically you want. It's like, imagine if you were in the NBA and your hands were too small where you couldn't grip the ball, like you couldn't really dunk because the ball would just slip out all the time. So, now if it's 9-inch hands versus 11-inch hands, like who really cares? As long as it meets the minimum threshold of being able to grip the ball, and it's fine. But if you got baby hands, you can't throw a football, right? My son cannot grip an NFL football and throw it 60 yards. So yeah, it matters to a certain extent, but I don't put a huge emphasis on it as long as they meet the minimum threshold of, I believe we talk about 9-inch hands. So you want at least 9-inch hands. So yeah, there's some emphasis on it. I appreciate the super chat. No skills. So keep going down in the chat. Just try to see some questions really quickly. Tight end and safety rooms need to be completely revamped. Tight end, safety. You're saying completely revamped. So this is obviously you have Garrett Wilson, so receiver doesn't need to be completely revamped, but you need receiver 2 through you'd at least need receiver 2 and 3 this year. If you go into the year and Corley's your 4, okay, like not necessarily great, but give the kid a shot. But you need tight end, or you need a receiver 2 and 3. You need a linebacker. You need a lot, but yeah, tight end and safety, we literally don't have anything, like nothing. All right. Aaron Glenn. Yeah, okay, I got that. Happy New Year. First time seeing you this year. Oh, what's up, Kev? I've been on a few times, but yeah, Happy New Year to you guys as well. Hope you enjoyed something about the Super Bowl. At a certain point, I was just rooting for the biggest blowout in history and a shutout, but obviously that didn't happen. It was honestly hard for me to really even choose a side to root for. I don't like the Chiefs. I don't like the flops. I don't like Travis Kelce. The whole Taylor Swift thing being pushed in my face. Don't love it. I don't love the Eagles. I don't love Eagles fans. I think they're trashy, or Philadelphia fans in general are trashy, but it is what it is. Congrats to them. Congrats to Becton, who immediately went on social media and tweeted about it after. But nonetheless, it is what it is. So what free agents from Super Bowl teams would you want the Jets to look into? I honestly, I don't know, Kev. I know that Nani has put out some articles like making connections between the Lions and the Jets and some of the coaching connections to these teams, and made like free agency lists and underrated guys and those type of articles. So go check out Nani's articles for that, but specifically free agents from the Super Bowl teams. I don't know who is free agents. I know Josh Sweat's a free agent from the Eagles. I know Zach Bond was a free agent as well. I thought I saw something that Zach Bond resigned, linebacker, but I'm not sure if he actually did. But I guess you can look into Sweat if you wanted to. But do you want to pay that much capital for a D end? I'm not sure. I could see one getting maybe added in the first round, but are they going to pay Sweat $20 million a year after drafting JJ, after drafting McDonald in the first round? I'm not sure. I probably would lean towards not, but would you trade Washington to Washington or Arizona for a first? No, dude. No, hold on.
What the hell is even that?
Come on, Wild Away. If you need more than a first round pick for Q, dude, Q is worth more than a first round pick. He's a top 3 D tackle in the league right now, at minimum top 5. You want more. You want more than that. Winston, it would be fun, man. But he's an entertaining character. I think at a certain point, Jameis Winston should get like a show on TLC where they follow him around all day, and it's like a reality show type deal. Like that would probably be entertaining. But as a quarterback, I'd rather go a different direction. I wouldn't hate it though necessarily. I guess him versus Tyrod, whatever. Your thoughts on Mason Graham? So he's my second he's my first on my big board right now. I don't think his ceiling is extraordinarily high. Like I don't think he can be Donald. I don't think he can necessarily be like Chris Jones as a pass rusher. He's very explosive in short areas. He can be a little bit tight though. His long speed's not necessarily there. Again, a little bit tight in the hips. I think that leads to him falling down quite a bit more than I want to. I would say that for me personally, I wanted him to win more single teams than he did at times. Even though again, there are reps of him absolutely demolishing guys, and he got moved a little bit more than I thought he would versus combos as well. So I don't think his anchors may be as great as some people think it is. And even in the run game, like I going into it, I thought he'd be absolutely dominant in the run game, and he's good in the run game. I wouldn't say elite in the run game. And then again, there were some opportunities in the pass game where I wanted to see him win one-on-ones, and he didn't. And then I think he's a little bit tight, and he doesn't have an extraordinarily high ceiling. Now, with that being said, can I see him being a good run stuffer and a guy who gets you 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 sacks a year? Yeah, I just don't think it's a elite player ceiling. I think he could be a Pro Bowler. I do. And if you get a Pro Bowler for 10 years, like sign me up. That's kind of where I'm at with him. I think he's a very high floor player. I think he'll be at least solid pretty much no matter what. I just don't see him ever being truly elite, but there's only a couple of the Quinnen Williams, Chris Jones, and obviously like Eagle said, Aaron Donald level players. Nobody's really going to be Aaron Donald again, but I don't think he's going to be a Q, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, like elite type of player. But I think I said it I was on the phone with Scott Mason however many days ago, and this isn't a direct comparison because I really didn't necessarily watch him play, but I could almost see him being a guy who is consistently like in the top 10, like a Grady Jarrett. I'm not saying their games are the same at all, but Grady Jarrett for the Falcons was very, very good for a few years, or for many years, and was always a top 10 D tackle, but maybe not necessarily a household name to everybody, but to football fans, like, yeah, this is one of the better D tackles in the league, not necessarily one of the top guys, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I see Graham. But with that all being said, he's still my guy at 7 right now. Again, him 1A, Will Johnson 1B. Injuries scare me a little bit. Again, I'm not sure how severe they are. Some of the tackling stuff with Will Johnson wasn't great. With Will Johnson, it's not lack of effort there. It's just the technique can be terrible. To my remembrance, obviously, I'll go over the film and actually do the list of strengths and weaknesses and stuff, which I already have formulated. I've been watching so much, I kind of forget at times. I think he's more of like an ankle grabber. He nips at the ankles a little bit, stops his feet, dives. He needs to definitely run his feet through his tackles and things like that. So Will Johnson's my 2, but again, it's a 1A, 1B type situation. Joe, would you extend ABT prior to the regular season? Obviously, that would free up close to $10 million, but would you? I would say right off the jump, without really thinking about this so much, I would probably say no, just because you want to see him healthy another year, and you want to see if he fits the offensive scheme, which I think really ABT is he's not scheme dependent. He can run more power. He could run more zones. So that's kind of maybe a reach a little bit, because I do think he can run any scheme, but I want to see him healthy for another year. So I would probably say no. I would wait with ABT just to see how it all works out, because obviously he had 2 season-ending injuries, and let's say we sign him to a deal and we tear something, knock on wood, then we're kind of screwed there. So I want to see him prove it for another year that he could stay healthy. Me personally, even though if they did extend him, as long as it's a short extension, like maybe extended another year, then yeah, fine. But a 3-4 year extension, I think that's probably a little bit of a reach for him, at least me personally. So. Every team should employ a clock management specialist, dude. And hey, Scott, why don't you also apply for frickin' stats? You could be the stats guy too. I'm sure you could do 1 + 1 = 2. That one guy couldn't get the stats right with Breece Hall. I'm sure you could at least do that. So There you go. Wild Wave. I was wrong about Kinlaw. Were you the guy on Twitter who said, yeah, hey, Joe, I was sorry. I was kind of mean to you about Kinlaw and I was wrong? Because I know there was somebody on Twitter who said that. Maybe that was you, Wild Wave. But yeah, I got some heat for the Kinlaw take that you're an idiot, Joe. He's going to be a great player. Look at the athleticism and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you could be athletic. The game is 90% mental and technique. It is, if not 95%. Look at, remember, who was the Odell Beckham's cousin that we brought in however many years ago? An absolute physical specimen. But if you don't have the technique, you don't have the mental there, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. And that's kind of where I'm at with Kinlaw. Being on an island with a Cam Ward take. Hey, I haven't watched him yet, so I can't say you're necessarily alone. I just haven't watched him. Who would win a competition from Dano or Danger Zone? A QB, dude. Come on. The Dom C, is that something involving with Dom C? I severely doubt that Dom C said Michael White over Taylor. Taylor is much better than Mike White ever was. Taylor was a starter for a few years. Taylor, if healthy or just healthy in general, in general, I think Tyrod is like a bridge quarterback, a bridge veteran starting quarterback in the NFL. If you really stacked up all the quarterbacks in the NFL, he's probably, again, assuming health, 28, 29, 30, 31, something like that. So Mike White is even on a roster right now. He was a quarterback 3 for most of his career. Tyrod blows Mike White out of the water. I don't know where that came from necessarily. It seems like some type of inside joke there between you and Dom C, but I'm not privy to it. So Howard always articulated in his throws. I think it's a processing thing. I think he has a good arm. Yeah, it seemed like his arm was not great when I watched him. Again, maybe it was just the games I watched. Maybe he's not comparing him to other quarterbacks, but I didn't see the greatest arm in the world from Howard. But again, I have to watch him completely to say, yeah, I'm going to put my stamp on this, and this is what I really think. But that's why I preface a lot of things. Milrow has a really bad defect that he can't. That I guess that it is that he can't. He's inaccurate. He can't read a defense. No, that's a bad defect. I'm okay with Taylor battling out with Fields. Who knows about Travis? Travis at this point is a complete dart throw. He had a terrible injury. He doesn't even come back healthy. This regime didn't draft him. He could be off the team. He could be on the team. I have no idea. But I put no stock into Harris. Shadow Maniac says, hey, Joe, what type of offense is this new Jets regime? Which the problem is we don't really know what the offense is necessarily going to be because Angstrom has never called an offense by himself. But assuming it's like the Lions, like Donnie said, we're going to have much less vertical shots. There's going to be much more in-breakers, much more play action, much more from under center, much more motion, much more 12 personnel. So those are some of the things you can expect. Now, exactly what the offense is going to be like, I'm not sure because it hasn't happened yet, McMillan is Mike Evans with, come on, Matt Smith. No way, dude. No way. Mike Evans is so much more physically dominant than McMillan. He's so much more built than McMillan. And Mike Evans has yak ability too. To say that's he's a Mike Evans plus. No, it's not in college, not in the NFL. Not in my opinion. No way. Sorry for the dog barking, but McMillan would be below Garrett. He'd be below Drake London that year. He'd be below Rome Odunze. He'd be below Neighbors last year. Mike Evans was a top 5, 6, 7 pick that year. Maybe the number 1. Texas A&M, right? Who else was that year? There's a bunch of that was 2013 draft, right? Mike Evans. There's a ton of receivers in that draft. That was the Odell Beckham draft as well, right? Brandon Cooks, was that year? I think it was. I feel like you have to trade up in the back of Mr. Forte. It all depends if a guy is worth it. Like let's say a quarterback is a high second round pick, and the Jets actually feel like that's where he deserves to be drafted, and you wanted to trade into the first, just the 5th year option. Yeah, fine. But if they feel he's a mid second round guy, a late second round guy, a 3rd round guy, you just take him at the end of the first to take him in the first. No, So, there you go, Matt Smith. But McMillan would be wide receiver 4 last. So I don't know if you're overhyping McMillan or underplaying how good Mike Evans is, but you're talking about a receiver who's had 1,000 yards for 11 straight years in the NFL. I can't say that McMillan is an upgrade in Mike Evans. There's just no way. Mike Evans is one of the most physically dominant receivers in terms of like the actual physicality in the NFL. One of the better contested catch guys. I can't say McMillan's that. I actually wanted, and I saw some contested catching from McMillan, but I feel like Drake London's film was littered with it. Now, maybe I got the wrong batch of games, but I didn't see a ton of opportunities where I was like, oh my God, that's like an insanely crazy contested catch where like Drake London was like stacked on stacked on stacked. Just so many freaking contested catches. So if Graham is there, take him. Yeah, I would be, obviously depending on who else is there, but Jay Spector says, big Miami U fan, watched every snap of Cam Ward, may be wrong, but not an NFL quarterback. So you and Matt Smith should battle it to the death. First step is always backward against the rush. Saw that for 2 years with Zach. Like panics against the rushes. I don't know if that's true or not, but Kev Chada says MLB 1, NFL 2, NBA. You don't like hockey, dude? If you don't like hockey, go to a hockey game and maybe it'll change your mind a little bit on hockey. But for me, it's easily NFL 1, massive gap, and then it's NHL, MLB, NBA. So yeah, Jay Spector says all the value in this draft is in second, third, fourth rounds. That's what I've been hearing too. A lot of the mid round guys stacked in mid rounds, but top of the draft is not great, which awesome because the Jets have a high pick. Okay. Sanders can be like LaMelo drama. It won't let Glenn build the team in his image. I wouldn't say like it's that much of a detriment where it's going to, like, won't let the team build in his image. I wouldn't say that far because he's not going to have roster control or anything like that. I could just see it being a situation where the Jets are struggling or Sanders is struggling and then his dad comes out on Twitter. I just rather avoid it. But again, if he's a good quarterback, I'm not going to skip on him because of that. It's just a little bit of like a yellow flag to me. So Matt Smith said John Simpson might be the best free agent signing JD made, even over DJ Reed. I know his signings weren't the best, but Simpson was great. Yeah, you can argue him or DJ Reed. Obviously, Reed proved it for longer, but there was also, I would say, probably higher expectations for Reed coming in because he had a bigger contract than Simpson, at least relative to corners to offensive linemen. But yeah, it's just first or second best signing. Now, with that being said, JD's probably only really made like 2 good signings, so there they are. Trade down. Yep. Don't know. I watch those 5 guys and that's it. I'm not gonna just make up stuff I don't know. Out of Sauce, Garrett, JJ, and Hall, I'd trade Hall first. Yeah, Hall first. Well, how does JJ come back? If JJ comes back and he is what he was, then yes, Hall first. But if JJ comes back and he's a shell of himself, then maybe JJ, first. But yeah, probably right now, gun to my head, it's Hall first, JJ second, Garrett third, Sauce fourth. And I know, people are down on Sauce this year, but it's like some of the discourse around Sauce saying he's like a terrible player now is kind of crazy as well. I feel like Garrett would be quicker to leave the Jets in a bad situation. Sauce kind of feels like he's a Jet for the long term. Okay. Blue, I remember those videos about Breece Hall in September, and it totally soured me on Breece Hall. I'm big time out on Hall. Yeah, man. And it's a thing where like the tape speaks, right? Like I'm not going to make stuff up. If I show it to you and I break it down, it's like, yeah, he was not great. Not an A-gap runner off tackle. Yeah, but all of his runs weren't A-gap. He didn't just hit the A-gap this year. There's plenty of runs used to the outside too. Breece Hall he didn't break tackles. He wasn't creative in the open field, and his vision wasn't great. There was a lot of things that were wrong with Breece Hall this year. It wasn't just play calling and the offensive line and scheme and stuff like that. Compare Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall breaking tackle skills, extreme difference. Hall easily fell too much. Look at like Jahmyr Gibbs. Look at David Montgomery. Like there's a lot of guys who are better. Obviously, Derrick Henry. There's a lot of running backs who are better than Breece Hall this year. Just watching them, it's like this guy breaks tackles. Breece just did not break tackles. You're gonna stream more often, yeah, for sure. Obviously, I skipped a couple of months. It's just, again, I've been doing content since 2014, streaming nearly every week since 2014, and this year almost broke me. It almost broke me. I had to take a little bit off, and now I'm back. So yeah, I'm sorry. I took a couple of month break for the first time in 14 years, or sorry, 10 years. But it is what it is. I had to. I'm with you on Conklin. Yeah, if you really watch Conklin's routes and you look at his efficiency over the last 2 years, I don't think you can be against me on Conklin. It's kind of factual, Doesn't new OC like to pass more in the middle yet? There'll be more passes over the middle that could fit Conklin's skill set, but was whiffing on tackles. Yeah, if they're wanting him to, if they want really efficient blockers, Conklin's not their guy. But as a receiving threat, that's why I said a top 10 receiving tight end in the league. I think he's that. But yeah, if they want a better blocker, I would understand. Like I wouldn't lose my shit if they got rid of Conklin, but don't overlook him. That's what I would say. What a trade for Kyler. I don't even know his contract. You're talking about at least the first and some. I don't know his contract. I don't. Kyler can't see over Tippmann after he snaps the ball. He's talented, but a lot of the major flaws, including height and work ethic. Yeah, I wouldn't love it. I wouldn't want to commit a capital and a big contract to Kyler. That wouldn't be my guy I would move forward with, even though you listen to Glenn and how he speaks about quarterbacks. He definitely values running quarterbacks and guys who are multidimensional. So the Jets will not be looking towards statues. They want guys who could do both, who can run. So Caden Jets page, yo, what is up? How are you? NY Jets super fan, what's up? Haven't seen you in a little bit. Treat AVT like they treated Pete Alonso, 1 and 2 year contract. Yeah, I'm with that. Which, by the way, that's great. The Mets got Pete back, so stacked lineup for sure. Joe, I thought you should review Michael Williams from Georgia, similar to JJ, but with higher pass rush upside, in my opinion. I know he's like the next guy, the next end after the other Georgia guy, who I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. But yeah, maybe I'll do a review on him. Eli, what's up, dude? Appreciate you being here. Howard had a horrible arm. You don't miss anything. You didn't miss anything, Joe? Yeah, that's at least what I saw. I didn't think the arm was good. But again, watching in passing is completely different than me focusing on him every single reps. Like there's reps I want to see opposite hash to an out 10 yards down the field that I maybe see and stuff like that. So that scheme, motion, etc., is why AR was not a good fit here. I'm sure Rodgers hates motion. Doesn't like it, at least based on the tendencies. Harrison Jr. Oh yeah, dude. Harrison Jr. is way far. That's not even a comparison. So was Neighbors. Not even the same conversation as McMillan. Not even close. How do you feel about the contract? They're obviously overpaying him a little bit, but when you're talking about a sport without a cap, then if Cohen's willing to overpay him a little bit, then I'm fine with it, right? Like who cares? It's not my money. I love them that he's back. Obviously great hitter. I think the fact that he was in a contract year hurt him probably a little bit last year. I think he was thinking about it too much. Where now that he's locked up for a year or two, maybe he'll play a little more loose. Obviously, a good homegrown Met, so I'm happy that he's back for sure, right? Like who else are we going to get? If you got rid of Pete and obviously Vientos and some guys taking steps forward, but it's just like it feels like with Soto you want to go kind of all in, and without Pete it didn't feel like an all in type of year. If that makes sense. I don't want to get too much into baseball, but people always overreact to both ends of the spectrum. Either Sauce is the greatest corner. Exactly, dude. Like he went from an all pro in his first 2 years to now absolute trash. When in reality, he went from an all pro in his first 2 years to a solid top 10 corner, top 15 corner in 2024. So, but now he sucks because he's not an all pro. It's crazy. So, Abaru Racha, Joe, people are understanding the Engstrom offense wrong based on his time with Ben Johnson when he was the USD OC and XFL coach. His offense was 80% shotgun and not to. Yeah, but obviously college and the XFL are much different than the NFL, right? Like how they're trying to attack people and the defenses they're facing and what the quarterbacks are comfortable with and all this stuff. Like what if his XFL offense, the guy sucked at taking snaps from under center, so they only run gun. And like how many teams in the XFL even go under the under center? Like I don't know those questions or those answers. So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, it's not the same because of the XFL and college. So over under 6.5 wins next year. Obviously there's a lot of like, who's the quarterback? Who do they draft? Do they trade for somebody? Who do they retain? Like there's a lot of questions to answer right now. I said 6 to 8 wins. So I guess the median would be 7 there. So I would say 7 wins right now. Gun to my head, so yeah, 7, I guess over, but there's a lot of information left out of that, right? NY Jets super fan, are you going to do a how to fix the Jets offseason show? I've never done that. That sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I could do that. I don't know. Maybe. What NFL rule would you like to see changed off the top of your head? The defenseless receiver bullshit. Like that's the first one that annoys me. If a guy's jumping in the air for a ball and I'm trying to dislodge it by hitting the shit out of you, like it is what it is. Am I supposed to let you land? Pat you? Okay, are you okay? Okay, now I'm gonna tackle you. It's like, no, dude. Like, yeah, you're defenseless. Sucks to suck. Don't be defenseless. Have you looked at the top corner of the draft and have you looked at Waller? I don't know who Waller is, so no. Have you looked at the top corner in the draft? If you talk about Will Johnson, yeah, I looked at Will Johnson. I like him. I wouldn't hate the pick at 7. And then I think the pick, I think the Texas corner is like Jahdae Brown or whatever it is. I'm going to look at Brown in a little bit. I think he's like my next prospect I'm watching after the Georgia edge rusher. But I'm going to go to my Twitter real quick and just show you guys and see if it loads. The Pat rule. The Pat you rule? The Pat, I don't know what that means. The Pat you rule? Is that like something? Am I supposed to know what that means? I'm not sure, Kev. I'm just trying to log into my Twitter so I can show you guys this. Okay. Let's show you my Twitter. Oh, Warren. You're talking about Waller. Yeah, I looked at Warren too. I think it's a weak draft class, so I wouldn't be mad with it at 7. In other drafts, I probably would. I think it's probably a reach for at 7 in most drafts. In this draft, if Will Johnson's gone, if Campbell's gone, if Graham is gone, then I'm okay with it. And even if Campbell's on the board, if they took Warren, like okay, I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't hate it either. I think he's a pretty high upside based on his measurements and the way he moves and stuff. So I think it's a pretty high ceiling. I just want to show you guys. Share screen, Twitter. Okay, so let me go to. I just want to show you guys like some of the responses I got. Okay. Yeah, it's this one. It's this one that I got 55 comments on. So I'll read the tweet, and obviously you guys can see it. And this is the only thing I'm talking about. So this is the only conversation there was that I didn't put out anything else. Funny talking point about this Rodgers saga. People who say the Jets without Rodgers are going to win 3-4 games, but with him, they'd win 9 or 10 and be a playoff team. You're absolutely out of your mind if you think Rodgers at 42 years old learning a new offense is the difference between 3-4 wins and 9-10 wins. That's all I said. If you think he's a plus 6-7 difference in wins, then you're absolutely crazy, right? That's all I say right there. And I'll scroll down until I notice like one of the crazy guys who I saw in here. But some of the responses I got were just wild. And there's at least 2 guys that I know that I wanted to. Oh yeah, here we go. 21 Savage says, listen to yourself. Losing with Aaron Glenn is okay, but losing with Salah is unacceptable. Sounds like a built-in excuse for a poor decision making from a poor organization. Am I out of my mind, or did I not say that at all? I never said losing with Aaron Glenn is okay, but losing with Salah is unacceptable. When did I say that? By saying that if you think 3-4 wins to 10 with Rodgers is crazy. I said, how is this your response to my tweet? Like, making me understand why you responded with this. You're literally saying it's better to win only 3-4 games as opposed to having a chance to win 9-10 games. That's not what I said. It's not literally what I said, because that's just factually false. I did not say it's better to only win 3-4 games as opposed to having a chance to win 9 or 10. Did not say that. Did I? You're playing mental gymnastics just to make it seem like losing is better. Again, when did I do that? When did I literally say that? I said that the same people who say they'll win 3-4 without Rodgers say they'll win 9-10 with. Never brought up Glenn. I should have said never brought up Salah. You're confusing yourself. Never condone losing. You're arguing with yourself. Your whole tweet is insinuating Rodgers can't win 8 or 9 games, so you might as well be prepared to win 3 or 4 games. Again, not what I said. If anything, I think they can win 6 or 7 without him and probably 8 or 9 with him. And that would be better than a 3 or 4 win game to make the playoffs. I said, this has to be by far the dumbest interaction I've ever had. Goodbye. Like, right. Like this is why I got rid of Twitter for a little, not got rid of Twitter, but I didn't go on it a lot, because how in any world did you interpret my tweet and say, listen to yourself, losing with Aaron Glenn is okay, but losing with Salah is unacceptable? Did not say that at all. And then where was the other one that was just wild? Let's see. I know it is in here somewhere again. A lot of people responded to this one. Where is it? Keep scrolling down. Am I not gonna be able to find this one now? I don't even know. Oh, did I block this guy? Oh, that's why. You're insane if you think a bum like Justin Fields raises our ceiling more than Rodgers. Oh, I think that's just a stupid one. I just blocked the guy because he's an idiot. But did I ever say that a bum like Justin Fields raises our ceiling over Rodgers? Like what? I don't even know where the other ones were. Where's the other one? I know I responded to it. No, not Jets blackout. Not that guy. Not that guy. Oh, come on. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try to find it for 2 more seconds to get back to the chat. I don't want to put too much dead time on here, but there was another one too where I was like, this is just brutal, man. Oh, here's this one. Here's this idiot, Blake. Okay, so he says, funny talking point bonus. We have no QB and no second wide receiver. We will do good to win 2 games next year, and there is no QB in sight, not through the draft, not through free agency. So we remain in purgatory for foreseeable future. So I said, okay, so without Rodgers, they have 2 wins. How many do they have with them, right? That's all I asked. Without Rodgers, they have 2. How many with? The 2025 Jets have a lot better chance at making the playoffs with Rodgers and Adams than they do without them. Do you agree or disagree? Tyrod Taylor is not a starting NFL quarterback. Agree or disagree? Aaron Glenn is nothing more than a former Jet who's been an average GC. Did not answer my question. I said that. You did not answer my question. Because the question is, how many wins did they get with him? He said, everything I said in that previous tweet is true. You can deflect or find cute ways to make a point if that's your prerogative, but I'm not about to sit here and lap up the, Aaron Glenn is going to build this thing his way. I'm not having a conversation with you until you answer the question. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, you guys see what I'm saying? Like, that is why I got rid of Twitter, or I at least didn't tweet for a while. It's just like, or not didn't tweet for a while. I tweeted and then just ghosted. Like, I just left Twitter because some of the interactions you get there are just beyond stupid. Beyond stupid. Let me read through a couple more chats and I'll get out of here. Okay. I think that this will influence a little bit on his offense. Angstran have a video talking about his offense. Sorry for my English. I'm from Brazil. Oh no, dude, awesome. That is, your English isn't bad. Your English is a lot better than my Spanish, Brazilian would be. Brazilian? I don't. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know. That seems pretty stupid to me. Auto first down for legal contact. Worst penalty. 5-yard penalty negates a third and forever. Yeah, I'm with that. The 5-yard penalty is, it's 3rd and 21. You get a false start. Now it's a first down. I'm with you there. Defenseless receiver is brutal. June the GM. What is up, June? Twitter's keyboard warrior central. Brutal, dude. Javid, I've seen you on Twitter. I know you are specifically from the Twitter. Parts of Jets Twitter has driven me crazy as of late with some of these comments. Again, just answer your question. I said, if you think he was going to win, you're going to win 3 or 4th out and then 9 or 10 with, you're crazy. And then I get you're making apologies for Aaron Glenn. It's like, what? How did I say that? He's not real. Yeah, there's a lot of times where I see it and it's like John 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5, 10. And I'm like, you have like 1,000 numbers on the end of your name. You're just a bot. You have to be a bot who was sent here to piss me off. Can find a tight end or cannot? I don't know. Nathan Ferguson. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'll call you Roca. Not sure. I'm not that deep into the draft, but apparently the draft is very deep with tight ends. So that'd be great to grab a guy in the mid couple of rounds who can actually produce, because the last time we grabbed one in the mid rounds, he sucked. Jeremy Ruckert. So, yeah, installing a new offense with a 41-year-old quarterback is absolutely moronic. I'm with you, man. It's he's going to have to adjust his playing style. And again, a rookie OC trying to kind of stand up to Rodgers. It's part of the problem, in my opinion. So, Jets tight end has been trash ever since. Anthony Beck. No, you got to include Keller in there. Keller was good at just injuries. Keller was the next best tight end. Post his address. I don't know who to. Average DC is crazy. Talk what for Aaron Glenn? Yeah, that's considering all the injuries, he did great this year. He did great. Portuguese, dude, that is so stupid of me. Yeah, that's so that happens when you're talking for like 2 hours and you're under pressure to continue filling the air. Yeah, Portuguese. I was like, Brazilian. That does not seem right. You are Brazilian from Brazil. But I'm like, they don't speak Brazilian. Portuguese. Yeah, my bad. And the funny thing about that is I'm actually Portuguese. I'm like, it's only like 13%, but maybe I should know that. When do you start mock season? After free agency, Kev. I got to watch a little bit more, but after free agency, we have no idea what what if they go out and sign a starting D tackle? Are we still going to be talking about Mason Graham? Probably not, right? You know, June says the NFL draft has proven one thing throughout time. No one knows who would be a good quarterback. Yeah, it's the hardest. It's the hardest thing to do in football is to draft a quarterback. No pressure, brother. Breathe in. All right, I'm gonna get off. I've been on for a little bit over 2 hours. Gonna go put the child to bed. Actually, you know, it'd be kind of fun. So, oh, that's weird, Javid. Yeah, I'm like 12, 13, Portuguese, Italian, and then like the kind of like, you know, other European stuff like mostly Italian. I think I'm mostly Italian and Irish, but then the next things are Portuguese and I forget. I don't know. Yeah, but Portuguese. Love that 7-win season. Will you be disappointed? No, I won't be. Now, if they don't build on that after, then yeah. The one actually, I'm gonna show you guys this really quickly. Just really quickly. Microsoft PowerPoint. Maybe one day we'll actually go through this together. But I do just want to show you what I've been working on a little bit too. And again, this is nothing to do with like JetX or anything like that. But I'm in a public speaking class. I had to take it for work. And maybe I have to sign in right now. If I have to sign in, I don't care. You guys won't know my password. This is my there you go. bluejoy@yahoo.com. Yep, there you go. So for this public speaking class, I had to do a 30-minute presentation, and they said that you could do it on absolutely anything as long as we learn something about something. So my presentation is about my miserable life as a Jets fan. So maybe one day we can just go through the presentation a little bit. But becoming the New York Jets, I got a bunch of slides on this with some Joe Namath quotes, history of the Jets chant, which is dying, unfortunately, my early fandom years. And then we get into like a little bit about Chad Pennington, 2008, Rex Ryan, foot fetish. I have something about, and excuse my French here, cover your kids' ears, but I have in 2017, Rob Anderson gets pulled over by cops and tells the wife's cops that he's an F the wife and cum in her eye. Put that in there. The butt fumble, all of the years. I go through the years year by year. Gino getting punched out. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2016, Sheldon Richardson, 143 miles per hour, his nephew in the car smells like weed. 2017, we skip drafting Mahomes and Watson because we have Hackenberg. 2018, 19, the Gase hire. I have it all in here. So maybe one day we could just go through that and kind of see. But can you guys see that at all? Could you guys only see the PowerPoint? Oh, I'm an idiot, dude. Hold on. I'm an idiot. I didn't even show you guys. Share screen. Okay, I did the wrong thing. I'll show you again. 2024. Again, I just go through the years. You already like heard the things I mentioned here, but it's a whole PowerPoint on how shitty the Jets have been. So yeah, maybe one time we'll go through that. I'll hit some final chats in here really quickly. Public speaker class. I once thought about taking that class, so I don't have to. It's not a thing that I signed up for. I am a firearms instructor, so I teach people how to shoot pistols and rifles because I'm good at it and I get good scores. And to maintain myself being a firearms instructor, I have to take a public speaking class. So this is what I'm doing. So I started watching the year after the Jets won the Super Bowl. Oh, geez, yeah. So you'd have a longer presentation than me. I really became a diehard in 2007, 2006. Next time we talk, every country. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. All right, I'm getting out of here. Clearly, I have been talking for too long. I will see you guys next time. Thank you.